Helps if you unmute yourself. Nice one, Timothy. So I was saying I was bang on time at 1 o'clock. Well, so it's technically still 1 o'clock. Anyway, we're here. So, g'day, Shemai, howdy, kia ora. Wherever you're tuning in from, thank you for doing so. Hopefully you're having a great day. Hopefully you also maybe tune into day one. If you didn't, I've already put some links in the comments as to how you can go find that. Basically, it's if you go search for me on LinkedIn or search for Grow Good on Facebook or YouTube, you will find the content from yesterday. So we will get into day two. So to kick off with day two, you have me. I'm going to go through a little bit of a workshop on organizational purpose called Get Purpose at Work. Let me see if we can get this to work. We shall look at that. Boom. That's what I was looking for. We'll just get rid of that logo on the top. Otherwise, you'll have too much Grow Good, but you can never have too much Grow Good, surely. So, yeah, the first session is really, I guess, balancing a little bit of a lot of the B Corp work that I do, or people do, or B Corps do in general, and I would say sustainability more broadly in general is quite rational. It's measured. It's focused on things that have outputs. But there's a side, a second side, the sort of the more spiritual, metaphysical, the purpose side of things that we also need to connect to. And if you don't have both parts, then you don't get as good outcomes as you could do. So what are we going to get into today? So we're going to look at how you can align your operations with purpose and core values, give you some strategies for embedding purpose across your entire company. Give some examples of companies that have that are truly exemplars of purpose-driven practices, and give you some know-how as to how you give you the knowledge as to why doing both of those, or rather embedding purpose into your organization is good for you and the world around you. So I'm going to structure this session in sort of three parts because. And we're kind of going to go up and down and sideways, as it were, with sort of how we dissect purpose. But when people hear the word purpose, quite often impact and meaning are words that might also be put into the mix. Within the B Corp world, particularly, there's kind of business for good. There's impact-driven business, meaning that is kind of associated with those words. But I'm going to break them down into sort of three parts and show how, like, together they lead to this thing called purpose at a higher level. So when we think about any business, so your business, why does your business exist? Why does any business exist? Well, the main reason pretty much any business was established in the first place was to solve a problem. It was to fix a need, solve a problem, do something typically, ultimately for a human at the end of their value chain. And when we think about what human needs look like, we typically think of a guy called Maslow, and he had his cheeky little hierarchy. Now, it's interesting because actually he never drew, he never sort of considered his work as a hierarchy. And there's been some, I guess, more modern interpretations. There's a really cool psychologist, Scott Barry Kaufman. He has reinterpreted his hierarchy actually as a sailboat. Because it's not like a gaming level where, right, all my physiological needs are met, therefore I go to safety and security, and then you sort of level up to social needs and then self-esteem. You can have your physiological needs met, and not go any further, or equally you could be self-actualized and not have safety and security. So just a quick check-in on that. But when it comes to business, a lot of businesses will actually prey on the kind of the social needs and the self-esteem of humans. As any long-term listener to the stuff that I talk about will know, I tend to pick on accountants and marketing people, and the marketing people are definitely people who are, using their skills, their tools of influence to possibly prey on people's self-esteem and social needs in order for them to buy stuff. And so when we think about, the needs that your business is actually solving, sometimes those needs maybe aren't really needs. They're kind of maybe more wants. And for me, one of the great examples of this is this product called Pooch Selfie. So this was on Shark Tank, which is, I guess, one of those business, what's the way to describe it, sort of investment programs where people pitch an idea and some people with lots of money go, yeah, sure, we'll invest some money and we'll take your business to the next level. So the fundamental idea behind this is you attach this thing to the top of your phone, which holds a tennis ball, which then helps you take a better selfie with your dog. Well, I've got wee Dougal down here. Yeah, he's under the desk. I could probably pretty easily take a selfie without that. Let's be honest. This for me is kind of like a really great example of how, this is not solving a problem. And if anything, this business is just creating more problems. This is one of those classic, sort of Christmas stocking fillers or funny birthday presents that gets used maybe once, then ultimately ends up in landfill. But, someone has gone from conception of this idea to prototyping it, to getting someone to make it, to marketing it, to selling it, to getting investment. And here we are. Now, this, I guess, is a bit of a flippant example, but when we just focus on trying to sell things by creating artificial needs, and we take our eye off why we are in business and what we, the genuine outcomes we're trying to get, it does lead to really, really bad places. The Boeing 737 MAX is a great example of how a company took its eye off safety and doing the right thing in chasing just, we want to really maximize our profit outcomes. And I had a similar experience. I've got a couple of blog posts. I think it was one main blog post, and I've mentioned about it on a few podcast interviews I've done about, my own experience working in the medical device industry, which I was doing before I got into the world of B Corp and purpose-driven business, where the medical device industry and the pharmaceutical industry they will chase profit over patient outcomes. So the real risk is once you, if you're chasing artificial needs and you're not really cognizant of the impact of your business, it can lead to some really, really bad outcomes. So we kind of want to think back then to Maslow, because actually it's not very well known that before he passed away, he had an unpublished version of his work. And in his work, he realized that actually there was a step beyond self-actualization. So self-actualization kind of suggests that you know who you are, you know of your place in the world, which is fine, but you can be knowing of your place in your world and your skills, and what you have to offer, but you can still fundamentally be a bit of a dick, and how you're utilizing those skills cannot be necessarily for good. You could use those skills for bad. So he basically reckoned that the peak human experience was actually about transcendental purpose. So transcendental basically sort of describes or is talking about something that's bigger than you, outside of you. It's if you're having a transcendental experience, it's kind of like an out of body experience. And purpose, we'll get onto in a second. We'll unpack that in a second. But it's really interesting. The other thing I think is interesting, if we're 5 years post pandemic now, but it's kind of really interesting to recognize that the businesses that kept going, that were considered vital to humanity, were basically ones providing physiological needs and safety and security. And I think the pandemic kind of like quite an interesting time to reflect on. If your business is not essential for humanity or the planet, then what is it doing? I'd argue, happy to go toe to toe and have a good discussion, but I'd argue pretty confidently that the Pooch Selfie is not vital for humanity or the planet. There's other ways you could possibly get a selfie with your dog or your cat or whatever pets you may have. So yeah, I think that's just all worth considering. So what is organizational purpose then? I think when I first connected to the idea of purpose, when on an individual level, that was a big part of my journey coming out of the medical device industry. I went through a pretty decent journey of self-discovery to work out, okay, well, what is life all about? What is work all about? What is the meaning of life and work? What's it all about? And trying to get your head around purpose. It is a bit of an ethereal idea. I gave a talk at a conference for accountants, ironically, a few years back, and I sort of would say that trying to describe purpose is like trying to explain the taste and smell of the number 3, to which obviously accountants told me it's like strawberry. But it can be, it's quite a, when you're first confronted with the idea of purpose, and particularly at an organizational level, where you've got lots of moving pieces, you've got a value chain, you've got customers, you've got suppliers, you've got your own team, like what does that actually look like? And for me, for those of you who were tuning in yesterday, particularly with the chat with Ben, and if you've listened to any of my other content, you will probably know that I have a degree in medieval history. But obviously, this is going back further than medieval history. Medieval for me was like Europe, England, and France, 1000 to 1200. So we're going really, really old here. So we've kind of known, though, what this purpose thing is for quite a while. So this is our old mate Aristotle in about 350 BC. At the intersection where your gifts, talents, and abilities meet a human need, therein you will discover your purpose. So really, that is the crux of what purpose is all about. It's about your contribution, your reason for being, is the best way to think about it. Like, what is it that you have on offer that you can use that will make the world a better place? So if you think about some of the world's most inspiring organizations, this is typically what they are about. They're playing a game that's bigger than themselves in service of others. And again, if you were tuning into the fashion panel session with the amazing crew from Eileen Fisher, Eralda, and Rip Curl KMD brands, they're all working with their peers, with their, in some cases, competitors, with their supply chains to make change, make positive change, and do good. And that really is a great example of purpose. As I said yesterday, if you're competing against your competitors, you're not on purpose. If you're collaborating with your competitors or co-op, I've heard the other words, cooperation. It's kind of like competitor cooperation. That is the sweet place to be, because it shows that you're transcendental. It shows that you're playing a bigger game than yourselves in service of something bigger. And so the idea really of a purpose-driven business is, yes, profit. And I'm not saying don't make profit. I think the difference is profiteering. So taking way too much money than you need is a thing, but also the impact of how you make your money is obviously a clear piece of the game here. So beyond just making a financial return, what and how do you create impact around what you do? The other thing that I reflect back on with my medieval history degree is back in the day, like if we were living in a medieval community, now obviously environmental legislation was pretty poor, worker empowerment legislation non-existent. So I'm not saying it's all perfect, but it's really interesting for me if you reflect on some people's surnames. So like Fletcher, Cooper, Scrivener, Baker, Butcher, the contribution that you made as a business or as a as a business or as a purveyor of goods in your community was so significant that we actually named ourselves after the contribution that we made. And so I think that's just worth reflecting on. Whereas, again, I think it was with the conversation with Ben yesterday, we talked about it's really only since the 1950s, 1960s, has this idea of shareholder primacy at all costs been a thing. So if we were back in our little medieval community and you were the blacksmith, say, and you were making really bad pieces of kit, you were making awful horseshoes, and your swords were really, really terrible, and you were dumping all the waste from your manufacturing process in the community, and you were using way too much water than an average blacksmith. Like, it's not long before actually the community probably looks at you and goes, "Hey Tim, look, actually we don't want you here, so you need to jog on." And so, yeah, it's only really in the last little while that we've had this idea that we just need to maximize the amount of money that a business is making and not consider, the contribution we're making, and around that, the impact that we're making, which is what we'll get onto a bit later on. So I said we're going to kind of slice and dice this purpose in different sort of up and downs and lefts and rights and backwards and forwards and what have you. When it comes to purpose in an organization, or organizational purpose rather, there is a bit of a spectrum. And so the most purposeful organizations are typically charities because they are mission locked. They have to serve a beneficiary. That is 100% what they do. And there's, kind of no expectation that they operate financially, other than obviously not being insolvent, but there's no expectation of a shareholder return. It's all about the mission, and it's kind of like, that's the focus. At the other end of the extreme, we've got business as usual, or BAU. So in most countries that you will be tuning into, watching this live stream, the only thing you have to do as a business is trade solvently and legally. So as long as you're making money and you're not breaking any laws, you're pretty much good to go. There is no spiritual, metaphysical, there's no, I use this example all the time. Undoubtedly, right now, there are people working for consulting firms who are lobbying governments all around the world to try and get more, to enable younger people to start vaping or smoking. There are people doing stuff that they can, compartmentalize, say that there's a good outcome for it. This is why we're doing it. There's that whole thank you for not smoking, that kind of lobby. There's people doing that right now. It's not illegal. Is it moral? Is it ethical? Well, possibly not. So business as usual is where that sits. I'm kind of getting the next level, I guess, towards more commercial and charity. There's this idea of social enterprise. So the idea of a kind of a mission-locked business. A great example of this in New Zealand is Kilmarnock Enterprises, just literally down the road from me here where I'm streaming from. So they have a mission lock of helping people with intellectual disability lead really meaningful lives, giving them education opportunities, and ultimately finding them mainstream employment opportunities. That's a whole really underserved community. Another great example would be the Harpai Foundation, of which I am a trustee. Shout out to them, where we have a product called the Harpai Access Card, which is about providing, more accessible community connections with people with disability around New Zealand, and it's also a card that's connected around to the UK as well. So business, their operations that run on a commercial model. So, for example, the Harpai Access Card, we charge a $10 fee for the card, but the profits go fully back into creating impact. So, social enterprise, it's an interesting model. There's the UK has kind of been better at social enterprise, but it is a model. Going back on the other side, CSR, so corporate social responsibility. There are many businesses that are dipping their toes in trying to do good. Some more, better than others. The CSR is when we're possibly in the realms of greenwashing. We might have got companies kind of doing things, but not really doing things. They might not be doing things so effectively. It's an intent, but you're not. Possibly your focus is still primarily shareholder return. And then for me, this is where kind of B Corp sits in the middle. It sits across this mixture of impact and purpose. So it's like do good and make money at the same time. And if you want to know more about B Corp, obviously I did the whole session on B Corp yesterday, so you can check in and get some more about that. So when it comes to your business, there's already some purpose will already be existing in your organization. And I like to think of it as kind of like 4 levels of purpose that are typically operating. At the basic level, almost every business will be doing some kind of corporate giving. So whether it's to the local sports team, or they might have got a nominated charity, there's typically some kind of stuff going on there, even at a really, really basic level. Beyond that, you might then start getting into corporate volunteering. And this is really interesting because it's kind of slightly more aligned with your contribution. So, the skills that you have, and does it help solve a meaningful problem? Sometimes, though, I think where corporate volunteering can go wrong, I know that we experienced this at Kilmarnock. We'd have very well-meaning accountants coming in to work in a food production facility, and they really didn't enjoy doing food production type work, they did it really badly. And so they would walk away with some nice photos saying, hey, aren't we amazing? We just spent a day volunteering with this amazing charity stroke social enterprise. Meanwhile, it cost the charity money because we had to redo all the work that had been done badly the day before. So quite often it's more stacked in favor of the organization, less so of the charity. Or you end up with a bunch of techie people doing tree planting and they don't want to do it, and again they do it badly, and really the outcomes just aren't that great. The next level up, step 3, would be kind of purpose light. So this might be where there's individuals or teams or departments that are working on little mini purpose projects where there's kind of a little glimmer of, hey, maybe we could just go over here in some kind of skunk works place and we have a play around and see what's what. But ultimately, what we're looking for is what I call purpose fuel performance. So this is where you have a clearly defined and articulated purpose. Everyone, the individuals, the company is fully aligned and integrated around doing this. And your business is aimed at solving a true human or planetary need. So like your purpose is your strategy. And that's kind of, again, this is kind of connecting it back to the B Corp world. The really high performing B Corps are the ones that have an impact business model. Again, if you want to understand more about that, you can check the session from yesterday. So the companies, the B Corps with an IBM, are the ones that can prove they're going out of their way to solve a social or environmental issue. And again, it's like, why in the late was it sort of mid 90s in the UK, there was No Fear was a brand, and one of the slogans they had was if you're not on the edge, if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space. And it's kind of the same with, like, if you're not a business that's at least trying to not making the world a worse place, ideally, you want to be a business that's making the world a better place, because that's where purpose and meaning will sit for you and your team, as we'll sort of unpack in a little minute. Another key thought on the donation stuff is shout out to a good mate of mine, Loudon Keir. He's been involved in fundraising for various charities over the year, and we sort of co-launched the Harpai access card and sort of helped with the transition of the foundation. And he had a great turn of phrase: it's not what you gave, it's what you could have given. I remember we received a pretty decent donation from someone into the Harpai Foundation, and Loudon just said, yeah, look, actually that's actually a bit of a slap in the face, because I know their net worth, I know what they could have given. And I think it's the same with businesses. It's not what you, it's like, yes, do what you can with what you've got right now, but can you give more? Can you do more? Because I think sometimes the charitable donations are seen as a, hey, look, it's just a quick easy win, let's just give $50 or whatever, get it done. The other thing with purpose is, again, this is like the risk of it not being fully baked in. This was a report that was issued in 2021 called the Purpose Tapes by the Purposeful Company. So they basically interviewed purpose-driven leaders in their own words. And this was one of the quotes from the CEO of NatWest Bank, a big UK bank at the time, to champion the potential of people, families, and businesses. Well, that sounds quite noble. I'd say it's quite a weak purpose statement, because you could possibly put that purpose statement to any business in the world, really, and you could probably shoehorn your activities as to what you're doing, around that purpose statement. But this is a really great quote that I use quite often. This is from James W. Frick. He was the former vice president for public relations, alumni affairs and development at the University of Notre Dame in the US. And he said, don't tell me where your priorities are. Show me where you'll spend your money, and I'll tell you what they are. And I think this is a real differentiator between companies that are talking CSR versus companies actually making an impact and truly being purposeful. Because unfortunately, the NatWest, after or around about the time that purpose, conversation was happening, they were facing criminal cases over money laundering. So it's like, well, is that really supporting families, business, and communities? Well, you could possibly make an argument, but if there was a true sense of purpose, if there was true depth to the meaning and the impact, and it was fully aligned within the company, possibly not. Some other examples of like purpose versus, like true purpose versus what I call purpose light. So dipping into the health and beauty sector here, There's a couple of great examples. Monday, hair care brands, shampoos, conditioners, what have you. And on the right hand side, we've got Etique. Etique Beauty, they sell a range of hair conditioners, deodorants, moisturizers. They've even got their Bow Wow bar for cleaning your smelly dog, which I'm very grateful for, even though he doesn't fully enjoy the bath. So, on the face of it, okay, there's nothing really that you can see around purpose on this one. But when you dig a little bit deeper, okay, so Monday, talking about inclusivity, so focusing on some social performance. They talk about being vegan, cruelty-free, no SLS or parabens, natural ingredients, and 100% recycled bottles. So you think, okay, well, that all sounds pretty good. But possibly a little bit purpose light when you compare them to Etique. Clearly focused around the contribution that they're making. So they have a whole impact page on their website. So when Etique was founded, it was fundamentally about removing plastic bottles and reducing water use in bathrooms. So a clearly articulated contribution and sense of purpose, and like, this is the problem we're trying to solve. This is the contribution that we're making. And on top of that, they do a whole bunch of other stuff. So no plastic at all. Compostable, recyclable containers, responsible sourcing, vegan, cruelty, and palm oil free. They give 2% of sales. They plant a tree. They're a B Corp, and they're on their carbon journey. So for me, that's like a really great example. And I think, again, we talked yesterday with Ben in particular, how B Corp in the FMCG sector is a really big thing. Increasingly, the consumers are comparing what's going on at that kind of level. And so I think that's just, for me, it's like a stark contrast between the two. Any questions on purpose type stuff, get amongst it and drop them in the comments. So another way that I want to sort of slice and dice purpose is by putting it in the context of other words that quite often get bandied around purpose. So we've started with the kind of like the three stools of purpose, meaning, and impact. But quite often you hear like vision, values, purpose, mission, and impact. And again, even like on the B Corp assessment as it currently stands, the first question is like, what's your company's written mission statement? But it kind of also means purpose statement, or it can mean. So yeah, there can sometimes be a bit of confusion around here. So the way I approach this is like, the vision is, where do you want to go? What is the end state that you're trying to help contribute towards? So if we leaned on Etique as the example, it's obviously a bathroom, or a world where bathrooms are using less water and there's no plastic. Cool, fantastic. The values is a really, really important thing that I think a lot of people sort of forget as the real bedrock. And if you're trying to work out your purpose, kind of starting with your values, like what do you actually stand for, is a really, really key thing. Because understanding what drives you will help you understand what, it's kind of almost working out your personality type as an organization. Like, what do we actually care about? How do we operate on a day-to-day level? Which will then help feed into the purpose ideation or discovery. So the purpose, like we said, is your it's your contribution. So what are we here to do, and how does that then obviously fit into the vision? The mission is, okay, what's the initiatives that we're actually doing that will lead to the vision? So again, if we looked at Etique, it would be, okay, well, we are gonna, phase one is going to be to create a shampoo bar that has no water in it, so it's a solid bar, it's not a shampoo in a container, and we're going to make sure the packaging is good. Since then, over the years, they've added more things into initiatives and projects that they're doing that will build on that, and away they go. But the impact is what is really key. And again, this is kind of like trying to balance that the spiritual versus the rational, or the metaphysical versus the rational, because we want to understand why, and it's kind of like more feelings based, like why are we doing and how does that make us feel? But you also need to understand the impact that you're doing. And again, that's why Etique is such a great example, because they measure and report their impact as well. On the values thing, like, hands up, how many of you have got these values on the wall that you're currently looking at? Possibly quite a few of you. It's like, oh, really? Integrity, shock. The worst one I've ever come across was commercial reality. That was a value that a company actually had. You know, it's like, okay, well, that's inspiring and aspirational. Yeah, I can't wait to come and work for you guys. The values is, like I say, that's actually a really, really, really key part of the purpose journey. Actually understanding how you want to think and feel as an organization, and how does that articulate? How is that articulated? And how do we stay true to those? And if you want some help on that, I can possibly help you. There's a really cool tool called the Emotional Culture Deck, which is a great tool for using for a range of purposes, but particularly on the sort of the values and purpose journey. If you just Google ECD, Jeremy Dean out of Wellington, it's a New Zealand designed product. Really, really cool. And more than happy to help you if you've got a company that's got commercial reality as your value. Actually, you might be beyond saving. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But the values is a really clear thing, and it goes back to our James W. Frick comment. It's like, don't tell me what your values are, show me what you do. And again, I think there's so many, there's a bunch of consumer data that was issued last year from the Kantar report. They do an annual report on social and environmental impact and performance, and how people are viewing that from a New Zealand perspective, but there are similar studies done around the world. And one of the big things was that people are either confused about your claims around doing good, or they don't believe you. And typically, I think the lack of belief comes from, well, because you say one thing and you're doing something completely different. So this doesn't stack up. And I think that was something I definitely experienced in my working environment, particularly working in the medical sector, where companies literally will have values carved in stone in their head office, and then they completely ignore them and just chase the money. And I think there's a lot of tension in a lot of businesses where deep inside that you're not doing the right thing, or the company's not doing the right thing. But yet the company's saying that it should do the right thing. And I think that's a large part of sort of mental health issues more broadly, is that internal subconscious tension. All right. So how do you connect, or maybe reconnect to some purpose that you have already got in the company? So one thing to really look back on is actually, why was this company founded? Like, what's the creation myth story? The team at Genora, when I helped them with their B Corp journey, and we did a little bit of purpose work as well around their B Corp journey, having Monique, the CEO and founder, sort of talk about what the business meant to her and why she founded it and how it was founded, it was kind of a little bit revelatory for the team. Genora is still quite a youngish company and quite a smallish team. So if your company is now quite big and operating across multiple zones, you are sometimes just so disconnected. I mean, again, when I look back at my medical career, they'd make you learn the history of the company. And typically, most of them were founded in really, really good, purpose-driven, we want to fix people, we want to save lives. But they're so far removed from that they've forgotten what that original story was about. So that's a really, really key thing to start off with, like really understand, like what was that need we were solving? And that actually, is it a genuine need? Or, has that need actually been fixed? Is there something else that we could be looking at? When it comes to your genius, so Aristotle, your purpose is your genius, human need. The word genius is a really, really cool word. So if I say genius, the image that typically comes to mind for most people is a kind of crazy professor looking dude with some crazy hair called Einstein. And most people think the word genius means like you're super smart, but actually the word genius comes from Latin, and the original meaning of the word genius, or genii, was your spirit. And so in Roman times, they believed that everyone was born with an innate spirit. So an innate set of gifts and talents that they were, the reason that they were here is so that they could give those talents to the world to make the world a better place. And so when it comes to you and your organization, like what are the skills? What is the genius? What is the innate abilities that you have in your organization? And are you, kind of using them to the maximum of their ability? So just have a think about, what are we really good at doing as an organization? The next thing to think about is, well, who are you serving? So again, you might be not that clear. I did this a purpose session kind of similar to this one with a company actually in the medical device world, and it was really interesting that they collectively didn't ultimately see that they were really serving patients. They kind of stopped because their customer was really the hospital or possibly the surgeon, and they kind of said, no, we serve the customer, so we serve the surgeon, and that's kind of where it stops. It's like, well, yes, but the surgeon serves a customer, and the customer lives in a family, and the family lives in a community. So it's sometimes really interesting just to extend your value chain, like up and down, to think about how you're helping people. Because one of the big disconnects, again, like in bigger companies, that you've lost your original sense of like why we're even here. It's quite often the case that, the boss is like, hey, Tim, can you just get that spreadsheet done? I just need it done. But understanding why it needs to be done and who is benefiting from that thing being done is really, really critical. Because if you understand the genuine human need behind it, because basically at the end of every value chain is a human being they might be doing something or affecting some change to a non-human, but fundamentally there's a human that you're impacting and influencing along the way. So getting really clear on who you serve is the next thing that you need to do. And then the next thing we need to do is obviously understand, how does that impact? So what is the impact of our contribution? How does it impact another human being? And I think that's the real key. Like if you're doing daily, mundane, grindy tasks, it's like, why? You're like, who is benefiting from me doing this? I think, again, working with this medical company, like they had a real revelation that it's like, oh, I kind of get it. And for some people in the room, it's like, actually, like my grandma's just been in hospital, and I hadn't really thought that we're in a position where our company could be helping someone else's grandma walk away from that hospital in a better state. So, and by doing that, it makes the day-to-day grind and, doing the spreadsheets or doing the PowerPoint or whatever it is, it makes it more meaningful, which we'll talk about the meaning stuff coming up in a second. So the next wheel, or the next leg on the sort of three legs of the stool, I guess you've kind of got there, is the meaning. So purpose is, like you lifting a load, you making change from the skills that you've got, your contribution. When we talk about meaning is very much the internal feeling that you're going to get from the contribution that you're making. And one way to kind of think about meaning, like if you're lacking meaning in your day-to-day life, it's not that good for you long term. The meaning that you get from doing something justifies the suffering, basically, of the day-to-day slings and arrows of existence and possibly your work life. And when we think about where does meaning sit within the organizational purpose world, this is kind of a way to think about it. This is from a model based from a good mate of mine, Zach Maturio. I've got a podcast episode with Zach, so if you want to check out what he does, you can do that. And I really like this model. And so he talks about how you've got organizational purpose is made up of the product and the service that you're selling, the need that you're solving, and you, like, why do you care about doing that? And if you're not sure if you're kind of in the right organization, really going deep on your personal purpose is possibly what you might need to do. Why do I care about doing the job that I'm doing? Who are we serving? Does anyone actually need it? And I mean, there was a really great, I think I mentioned it yesterday, it's from a YouGov survey, it might have been about 2018, but about 30% of the British population said their job gave them no meaning and was more than likely contributing to destroying the planet. Well, what are you doing then? That's not good for anyone. So that's just a useful tool to reflect on. So why is purpose a thing right now? Why is organizational purpose, looking for more meaning, a thing? Well, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now that could be better. There's planetary stuff that could be better. There are a bunch of social things that could be better. And as I said yesterday on the B Corp session workshop, you all listening to this, you as individuals all increasingly care about social and environmental stuff. And you are increasingly wanting to know, how does your organization or your business play a role in possibly making things worse, or is it actively fixing those things? And if you can get purpose at work in your organization, it's like this untapped nuclear fission that you can unlock. So for the business, if you're a business leader or business owner listening to this, you're going to have increased team performance, you can have better team engagement, you're going to attract and retain the best talent. All the data shows that purpose-driven businesses like B Corps actually also perform better financially and are more resilient. And on top of it all, though, the best thing is you actually get to sleep really well at night, knowing that you've done the right thing, and that is just priceless. When it comes for you as an individual, or again, if you're a business owner, business leader, when it comes to individual purpose, there are kind of 7 major life benefits that purpose can give us. And like I say, this is why it's kind of like a super fuel. That it's this untapped super fuel of purpose fuel performance that you can drop into your business. So people who are fully connected to their purpose, on average, will have increased levels of focus, which leads to, on average, about 60% increase in income, wealth, and leadership effectiveness. It leads to increased health. So again, on average, a 42% increase in memory, cognition, and executive function. It has also been proven to create stronger DNA, which leads to stronger cells, which could lead to an extra 7 years of life. A sense of meaning and purpose will give you more hope, and it will give you more meaning. Overall, a doubling in life satisfaction. So a 64% increase in fulfillment in your life if you're connected to your purpose. It will give you increased motivation. So motivation is actually kind of finite. So willpower, motivation, hey, I must go and do that thing, or I won't do that other thing. There's only so far that will take you. Purpose, though, is infinite. Yeah, if you're genuinely doing something that is bigger than you, that you understand is making a clear difference, and that's important to you, and you get warm fuzzies from doing that, you will just keep going. It's kind of like those stories when you hear of a mother, flipping a car that's trapped her child. It's like, if the sense of contribution and the reason why you want to do it is that strong, you will overcome all obstacles. Which is why, and again, I think this links to the B Corp side of things, why B Corp organizations perform better. You also have more resilient teams. So 4 times engagement of 5 times productivity on average if your team are on purpose. But ultimately, the overall benefit of having a company and a team on purpose is just this idea of contentment. It's like your business will leave a true legacy. I love to ask this question, and if you already know the answers, then don't shout out. But if I said to you, who was the richest person in the world in 1968, you probably wouldn't know. And I had to Google it, and I got multiple results, but the one that came up more often than not was Robert Wood Johnson, who was one of the co-founders of Johnson & Johnson. Cool. Right. So let's make it easier. Who was the richest person in the history of the world ever? Again, some people might say Rockefeller or the Queen of England or Jeff Bezos. When you adjust it for currency and inflation, the guy who was the richest person in the world ever was a guy called Mansa Musa, and he was emperor of Mali in the sort of late 1200s, early 1300s. See medieval history, it's where it's at, people. And that's just quite interesting that none of you would have known that. I hazard a guess that there's going to be very few people who would have known that. So let's go back to the late 1960s and let's talk about a gentleman in North America who wrote and delivered a speech about having a dream for a group of people in the United States of America. I'm going to hazard a guess that you all know who that person is, or who that person was. Martin Luther King. And this is the thing, yeah, people don't remember how much money you had. Like, I like asking CEOs this question, whatever your local stock exchanges, whether it's the New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, the FTSE, the ASX, the NZX, whatever it is, give me the name of the company that was listed number 5 on your stock exchange in May 2013. Without searching it, who was that company? No one knows and no one cares, because no one will remember how much money you had. They will remember what you did and how you did it. And that is like a key part of the purpose. So how do we get the team really firing on purpose and understanding the meaning that is in your role? Or if you're, just a concerned citizen employee tuning in, how do you really connect to meaning and purpose in your day to day? Well, there's 4 ways that are really, really useful. Like I said, I've kind of mentioned this a little bit already, but reminders of the good that you do. It's really, really critical that you connect to the beneficiary of the people at the end of the value chain of the work that you do. One really useful thing for this is actually to put pictures up of the end beneficiary of your product or service in your in your office. If you can have a real life example of someone who you've made a contribution to, that is a massive, massive advantage for you to keep that in mind. Also, sharing stories of impact and contribution as an organization. So rather than just, customer gave us 5 out of 5 review, product was great, service was great. It's like, actually, but how has that changed you? In the B Corp world, that's kind of called outcome measurement. So actually, what is the contribution that we're making, and how has it made a change? That is the stuff that will keep you going in the hardest times. Number 2 is called create purpose ladders. So there's that famous conversation that President John F. Kennedy had when he was going around the Apollo missions space center, and he walked past the janitor and said to the janitor, what do you do here? And he said, I'm putting a man on the moon. And it's this idea of, whether you call them OKRs, objectives, key results, or KPIs in your organization. And again, this is where B Corp actually fits in nicely, can help you work out what you should be tracking and how you track it. But it's got to be baked in across the organization so that ideally, every small piece of work that everyone's doing is contributing to that sense of purpose. Measure and report and reward the good. So again, we'll kind of, this links into the B Corp in a minute, which we'll finish off on. But reward the behavior that is creating the impact and creating purpose and creating contribution. Yeah, that's a really, really key thing. Typically, it's what you incentivize is what people go and do. So if you can incentivize good in your business, you shall grow some more good. And then lastly, adopt a craft person's mindset. Again, we talked about back in the medieval days, the Fletcher, the Cooper, the baker, the butcher, the shoemaker, whatever it is. When you do, again, your day-to-day boring work can appear disconnected and not that exciting. And there's the famous, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of parable, I guess would be a word, where a gentleman walks past, he sees some stonemasons at work, and he walks past, there's 3 of them, and he walks past the first one and says, oh, what are you doing? And he says, oh, I'm just smashing at this rock, and I've got to make it into a smaller rock. And basically, as soon as I'm done, I'm going to go home, and hopefully I'll get paid. The second, he moved on a little bit further and said to the second one, so what are you doing? And the second stonemason said, well, yeah, look, I'm putting this rock into a shape, and then it's going to go into the wall over there. And I'm sure the wall is going to be pretty cool, but just when it's done, I'll be moving on to the next project. And then he sees the third stonemason and says, oh, so what are you building? And he looks to the sky. He thinks about what it is he's being part of the creation. He says, I'm building a cathedral, and I might not see the final building of this cathedral, but I'm okay with that. And that is that true sense of purpose and contribution. It's like, how and in what way am I contributing to something bigger than me? Hopefully that is all making sense. All right, coming into the final stool leg, impact. We talked about how measuring and reporting and rewarding the good that you do. Well, the way that we do that is thinking about the impact that you're making. Now, some companies take stances on things, and that is the wrong way to do it. That's where you're going to basically be involved. You're going to be criticized, and rightly so, for virtue signaling. There's numerous examples where companies in one region will be supporting an initiative, but then in another region where it's politically sensitive, they won't be supporting it. or they support a cause, but actually the root, the very existence of their business is actually creating part of that issue. And so this kind of cognitive dissonance. So don't take a stance on things. If you want to do more good in the world, pick something that you can be a part of fixing. Either make less bad stuff happen or make more good stuff happen. It's as simple as that. And of course, the best way that you can think about impact measurement is looking at becoming a B Corp, which is what this whole 2-day summit is all about. So, B Corp for me is, and this is how we kind of bring it together, B Corp kind of proves your purpose, because you're going to have to go through and talk about what is your purpose, what is your contribution. And if you build your business around the B Corp assessment and look at the impact business models, you'll be able to have really clear thoughts as to how and where you can contribute to make more good. When we think about the last model, like I said, we've got business as usual, we've got corporate social responsibility, we've got B Corp, so a business that is aimed at balancing purpose and profit. Ideally, we want you to be a B Corp with an impact business model, because that demonstrates you're going out of your way to create more positive social or environmental impact than you're required to do. But ultimately, the ideal of a business is for it to be regenerative. And by that, what I mean is every dollar of product or service you sell only has a positive impact on people and planet. And we're not very close to that, pretty much. Like, we're still at 0.01% of the global business community is B Corp certified. So as I said yesterday, 99.99% of the businesses in the world are somewhere between BAU and CSR. So work to be done. And I think for me, trying to bring it fully together at the end, this is Gus Speth, and he's an environmental lawyer in the US. And this is why, just doing B Corp by itself is not effective. Just doing purpose by itself and not measuring its impact, not very effective. As he said, I used to think the top global environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that with 30 years of good science, we could address those problems, but I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with these, we need a spiritual and cultural transformation. And we scientists don't know how to do that. And that's why, for me, this purpose side of the scales is so important, because I call it the purpose horizon. You will only be able to see into the future so far as to how much good you can possibly do based on your level of individual purpose and organizational purpose as a leader and as a team. And again, that all comes back to the bedrock of your values. Like, if your values aren't the true values, that the true reflection of who you really could be, then the whole thing is just built on whimsy and flimsy, and it's going to come down in the first tough times. And so that's why we need this balance of the rational and the spiritual and metaphysical, the left and the right hand side of the brain. Right. Well, that is it for me. Any questions? Any comments? I've been pretty focused on just delivering, so I haven't checked to see if there are any comments coming through. Let me know. What are your thoughts? Where are you at on your purpose journey? Or are you a B Corp that needs to do more purpose? Or are you a purpose someone who needs to start measuring and reporting their impacts? I don't know. You tell me. Right. Let's, how do we do this thing? Let's remove that and we'll put me back on. And we will see we've got a Simon and a Jay in the green room ready to come in for the panel, which is going to be kicking off in about 7 minutes. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here nice and early. Right, let's see what we've got. Let's get rid of that. I'm just going to go and refill my water bottle and get ready. So Jay and Simon, you could just hold tight there in the green room. I will play some music to keep people entertained. You might actually just be tuning in for the music rather than listening to me. Who knows? And we will see you in about 6 minutes. What's happened to my camera? Come on, camera, don't fail me now. Oh, that's brilliant, isn't it? Technology, eh? It's a great thing. Right, let me see if we can stop. Hey, there we go. I have the power. Excellent. Nothing like live streaming to sort your tech out for you. So welcome back to session 5. Yeah, I think day 2. I'm not sure what's going on. Don't know which way's up, but we're back. We've got some people to come and talk about B Corp. So let's bring them to the stage. We have Karen Meredith from PeopleX with a beautiful Welsh surname, Meredith. Can't argue with that.
Thank you.
And we have Steve Arder, the OG B Corp guy in New Zealand. We'll hear more about him. We have the amazing Jay Taylor from FunLab and the equally awesome Simon Leach, Pathfinder. Kia ora, g'day, shumai, howdy. Literally, I think we're covering off all the bases there because I don't know if Steve's in are you in the States right now or are you actually in Christchurch?
No, I'm in Christchurch. You can say something Irish to me if you want.
Where is that?
If we're covering the bases, I'm not sure
we
what
are
it
covering
is.
the bases. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe St. Patrick's Day or something.
Yeah. Probably still going in some places.
Mm.
So thanks all for being here for this session. So obviously the theme of B Corp month this year is Generation B. And so my take on that was, wouldn't it be interesting if we literally got some Bs from across the generations in terms of certification dates from New Zealand and just kind of go, well, what's B Corp look like over the years? And obviously we've got Steve will get you all to do a quick intro, but for context, so Steve, obviously CEO, founder of B Corp, #1 in New Zealand back in 2012, wasn't it? And I keep saying you're so B Corp, you were a B Corp before B Corp was even in the region. You had to ring America and beg them to let you be a B Corp. That's how B Corp you are. And then we've got Jay from FunLab, who's certified late last year. So we've literally got a spectrum, and Karen as well. So actually, is Karen, were you this year?
Yeah, we were December 2024.
Right, so possibly it's going to be a fight between you two, and then Simon from Pathfinder. You're kind of in the middle, 2019-ish. So yeah, somewhere in the middle. So we've got quite a nice spread. So we'll just do a quick intro. Quick 30-second intro. We'll start with Karen. So just let us know who you are and what amazing mighty B Corp you're representing.
Well, kia ora, and thanks so much for having me on the live stream, Tim. It's great to see you yet again. Tim was instrumental in us getting B Corp certification at the end of 2024. We're an outsourced HR agency, so we provide everything from recruitment to performance management to lovely things like disciplinaries or not so lovely restructures and everything that you can think of under the human resource umbrella to all sorts of clients throughout New Zealand. And we're now fortunate enough to have Trans-Tasman clients as well. We're a team of 8, all females, coincidentally, all working mums, and we operate a fully flexible model. So great to be on the call. Thanks.
Fantastic. Kia ora, welcome. Let's go with Simon Leach, because he apparently knows how to say hello in Irish. So let's go with that, shall we?
That's the other Simon, Tim. We actually have 4 Simons on the floor now, I think.
You can never have enough Simons.
It's a little bit confusing. Kia ora. Of course, Simon talking all that. Guys, I have been with Pathfinder since 2019, late 2018. So I've been through with the first iteration of becoming a B Corp, and we'll be around for the next piece. Hopefully, we'll find out. Disasters always happen. However, from my side, I've been running the distribution team at Pathfinder for 5 years now. Pathfinder is for those of you that don't know, although I know we've got some fantastic family on the call with us, Pathfinder is an ethical investment manager. We focus on not only avoiding the bad, but looking for those more impactful, better investments. We try to push that side of things and stay at the pinnacle of that evolution that we're seeing around us. And my benefit or what I can bring to today is really that distribution lens and where that and B Corp intersect. Cheers, Tim.
Nice. And last but not least, Jay. Oh no, we haven't done Steve yet either, have we? Sorry, save Steve for last. So Jay, then Steve. Sorry.
Thanks, Tim. Kia ora tātou, ko Jay aho, knowing arangi aho. Jay, originally from the UK. I'm now based in the fine Ototaki in New Zealand, Aotearoa, in Rolleston. I'm the group manager for people services team at the FunLab Group. FunLab, we're an entertainment business, so we like to think ourselves, actually we know we are, we're the world's premier creative, competitive socializing experience made up of several brands. So some of the brands you might recognize are Holy Moly Golf Club, Strike Bowling, Archery Brothers Cirque Electric, and we're based across Australia, New Zealand, and the United States of America, with 50 plus venues and 2,500 plus mother funners, our employees, that provide the fun to our guests. And we're recently accredited B Corp business as of November last year. Thank you for having me.
No worries, man. And last but not least, Steve Ardo.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. You've only heard my story about 25 times now.
That's all good, mate.
Probably this year.
It gets longer and more embellished each time, so it's great.
I know. Well, I did think 30-second intro was a bit of an oxymoron, but we're a supplier of disposable PPE and gloves, and we're quite happily and unashamedly the world's dirtiest B Corp. But we help people use less of a better product and have been for almost 20 years now. And we operate in the US and New Zealand, and we were up until last year the only B Corp in this space, but there's now one other in our space in the States. And just last week, another one in the UK joined us that sells disposable gloves and PPE. So we are out to make an impact in what is a space that needs a lot of work, because there's some pretty poor operators, I have to say. So it's been a fun ride.
Nice. Yeah, I think it was always interesting. Like when I give talks on the growth of B Corp during the pandemic, most people go, oh, well, they were obviously all selling PPE and pharmaceuticals. And it's like, no, there was only one PPE company in the world that was a B Corp during the pandemic. Maybe says, I think it's interesting coming from a medical device background, how poor the representation is of B Corps in that world. But yeah, interesting. So it's interesting as well. Sawmill Brewery, they're like the only brewery in New Zealand that's a B Corp. It's like, come on, people, what's going on? Anyway, so we'll get into it. So first, sort of opening question, like, why did you all want to become a B Corp? I don't know. Maybe let's start with Jay. We'll just sort of mix it up. What was the story about FunLab wanting to become a B Corp?
Yeah, well, I mean, we operate, I suppose, across 3 different countries now, and I think at the time we want to give back to our community across Australia, New Zealand, and the USA, and we have guests from all different backgrounds, different age ranges coming in to enjoy our activities, and it's a safe space for them to come in and to experience fun at a next level. And I think to us, we needed to understand what more can we do. So I think at the time we knew we needed to do a bit more in the sustainability space, but we know we were proud of the work that we did in the social space, the stuff we did for our guests, and the stuff that we did for our mother funners, our employees. So really, we just wanted to embark on a journey to continuous improvement, because that's what we like to do as a business over the last 20 odd years. And I think this was just a perfect time 2 years ago when we had the conversation with you, Tim, and we decided actually we should be proud of the social stuff that we do. And yes, we're not great at the e-space, but we can always be better. And we want to take this accreditation so that we can improve and be open and transparent to our guests and to our mother funners about our journey when it comes to B Corp accreditation. And 2 years later, we got there. We got it, and we're proud of it.
Nice. And you got a fan, Carly Freeman. Great to see you at B Corp FunLab. Had a great night out at Holy Moly last night. There we go. Look at that. Connections happening already. Nice one, Carly. If you haven't been to a FunLab location, check them out, because they're good fun and genuinely nice humans to go and hang out with. And they're a B Corp, so what more do you need? Let's maybe go to Simon, because you guys were one of the first financial sector B Corps in this region. Depends how you slice and dice it, because like Kogo sometimes put themselves in the finance sector. It's like, well, you're kind of like more like an app, really. But yeah, tell us about why. Because I think Pathfinder's got, there's a depth to your purpose and why you're doing what you do.
Oh, most definitely. First off, hats off to Kogo and that team. I think I first met them in 2019 when I would have met you, Tim. And yeah, it was an interesting meeting to say the least. Left us with a lot of questions, and I guess that's where I'll start with this answer. So, as Pathfinder looked to expand its reach and take our investment thesis out to the general public and start a KiwiSaver space. As we started that, we looked for ways to bake in, the principles through which we invest are very similar to the principles within which B Corps operate. And it was really perfect timing as we started growing the team, as we started going out to market in a little bit more of a hey, look at us way. It was a way to make sure that we're staying on track, but also lend legitimacy and trust to the way we were operating. And that's how it started, is really seeing the alignment between B Corp and our investment thesis and how B Corps operate, and wanting to be part of that family and part of that journey as we continued growing, going through the recertifications, being able to engage with other businesses such as my esteemed fellows on the panel here. And it was a community that actually, really helped us not only get off the ground, but stay authentic. Because let's be fair, we were, like you said, Tim, first mover really in that space, really pushing the entire ethical investment market within New Zealand. So we wanted to make sure that, that authenticity flowed through into the way we structured the business, the way we approach growth, the way we approach distribution. And hopefully I get to talk a bit more about that later on.
Yep, we'll definitely get to that. Karen, how about you?
Yeah, sure. B Corp was just such a lovely icing on the cake for everything that PeopleX is trying to achieve. We were established in December 2020, which was a really crazy time to start a business. And one of the reasons...
It's up there.
Well, yeah, nearly 5 years later, we're still here, so we must be doing something right. But one of the reasons why I started the business was sustainability was a real big passion area of mine. And at the time, I couldn't really figure out kind of the linkages that a human resource professional could play. I knew there was something in it, but I just couldn't kind of figure it out or put pen to paper. So I went off and educated myself and did a course through Cambridge University over in the UK, got certified, really understood, and then everything was just like a light bulb, and I could really see the role that HR can play, not only as an organisation in terms of getting the B Corp, but what we can do in terms of advising businesses on how to kind of operate with a more sustainable focus. So we established a sustainability strategy way back in 2023 that kind of set us on a course of positive action around what we wanted to achieve. Now, at that stage, we were only about 4 people, but we thought, well, why not? Why can't an organisation of our size still have KPIs, still try and do good for both people and planet? The B Corp journey, as you know, Tim, took us 2.5 years to get here. It was a lot of hard work. But to me, it's kind of that seal that we are trying to do everything right. And I think as HR professionals, we should be setting the best example of what organisations should be doing. And now I feel really positive to say that PeopleX is that organisation that is really setting the example of what organisations should be doing for both people and planet. And now we're in a really privileged position to advise clients on that as well. And there's been a bit of conversation on this video chat around being the first. Well, we are the first and only HR agency in New Zealand who is B Corp certified. Thank you. And there's only one other in Australia. So across Australia and New Zealand, there's 2 of us that are certified. Yeah.
Good on you. Well, talking, I know B Lab doesn't like us talking about firsts, and it's like, I get it.
I know.
But by the same token, it's like, I feel like we should celebrate the first because you have broken the ground. It's like no one else has chosen to do this. So I feel like you know, and this is the segue into Steve. It's like, you know, literally, if Steve hadn't rung the US in 2012 and said, "Hey, I want to be a B Corp," I don't think B Corp would have come to this region. It would not have come as early as it did. That's for sure. So I kind of blame all of this on Steve. It's all his fault. It's partially his fault why I'm doing what I do. Really, that's a whole other podcast episode. We need to get Steve on the podcast to do a one-on-one chat at some point. That's for sure. But yeah, Steve, like 2012, like B Corp was 6 years old. It's not in this region. Like, what was going through your head?
Well, you could ask that any day of the week. But
I was gonna say, people still searching for that answer.
Now, we set up in 2006 as a business, and one of the things we wanted to do, Linda and I, co-founder and partner, business and personal partner, whatever the terminology should be these days, but and we wanted the business to be something where people, even though we're selling possibly the most boring product in the world, where people were engaged and felt they were achieving something. And I think we've achieved that, and luckily there's no staff members on the call, so they can't prove or disprove that. But so around 2010, I think I was going to a trade show in Germany, Medica, and I was going through San Francisco, and I'd read about Method, which you may or may not know, the detergent company. They do dishwashing liquid in San Francisco, and right down the bottom of their web page was this little bee. So I clicked in it, and Pandora's box opened, and it was like, we've got to have some of that. And I went and saw them in San Francisco. They were very gracious and showed me around, and I met the Bee Lab people in a little co-working space in San Francisco. There were only 3 of them at that stage. And we started on our journey to be a B Corp, and they were incredible. I mean, I was doing things like speaking at midnight to somebody in Nairobi who was our sort of liaison person. It was all a bit nuts. And I was asking them what a whistleblower meant, and all these funny things that Americans had in the B Lab assessment in those days. But and then I think there were 2 B Corps in Australia at that stage. One of which was the Little Giants. I can't remember the other one now, but and we wanted to have something that put a framework around what we felt we were already doing. And I have to say it was a lot simpler in those days in terms of the assessment. That's got much more involved now, which is a good thing. But you know, we had to do a lot, and there were some things that just weren't transferable across from the US to New Zealand. But we worked our way through it and became a B Corp. And then a year or so later, this nutcase from Wales came in, pretending his name was Tim Jones, which is just ridiculous because who has a name like Tim Jones? And then on it went, as you well know, until we've got a really thriving and pretty exciting community, and it's great to see the variety of businesses. You know, everything from evil financial people to awful HR people, you know, and all that sort of thing, and everything in between. And so. You know, I think it's just fantastic that we can put a group like this together, and we should all be pretty proud of that.
Nice.
Well said.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think it's 169 B Corps when I checked a couple of days ago. You know, I remember when there was literally like 5 of us, and it was like, do you know anyone else? Did you know who wants to do this B thing? It's like, no, I've rung all my mates, tried everything, and now it's kind of like, oh, you're a B Corp. Who are you? Who are you? You know, it's but equally 179 or 169, 170 is still it's really low. It's about 0.01% of the business community in New Zealand is a B Corp. So clearly, there's still a bit of work to do. So we've got a first comment from the audience from Timothy O'Brien, also known as Tim of Purpose #1, who I bow down to. He is the all-seeing eye of purpose, who I chat to every now and then. He's got a question about entering new markets, but I think I'll keep that for a little bit later, just to keep Tim on the live stream. But yeah, going through some questions. So, going through the process, was there ever a moment when you considered, like, actually, this is too hard, and I don't think we're going to do this? Anyone can jump on that one. Fastest finger on the buzzer, rather than doing creeping death.
I can jump in, Tim. We never thought about giving up. We knew that we could do it. It was just those same struggles that I would presume big businesses would have as well. Being a small business, we don't have resource. I'm IT, I'm marketing, I'm comms, I'm also HR. to circle our time
Teamaker.
to do this, and we were so grateful that Rochelle, who works with our team, who you know so well as well, Tim. I don't know if she put her hand up or she was told to do it, but either way, she did an absolute cracker of a job. But you kind of have to dedicate a person to do it and to really stay on top of it. But at no point did we consider giving up. I read some stats, and I don't know if this is true, you might be able to verify it, Tim, but only 40% of the people that kind of even submit when they think that they've got that 80 points actually then go on to get the certification. So they work so hard to get what they think is the 80, and then they go through the review process, and then they throw the towel out. So it's a really low number to get there, but in my view, you just can't give up. Everything that you need to create and do is so worth it from a business perspective, I believe.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. And I think, the talk or the workshop I just did, all about purpose, like motivation is finite, purpose is infinite. So if you really care about doing something bigger than you, and it's important and it means something to you, you will keep going and you will find a way to achieve it. Whereas if it's kind of like, nah, I don't really care, you're going to stop. Yeah. Anyone else want to jump on that one?
We at FunLab, we didn't ever want to give up, but we did have our own internal challenges, and maybe some advice to future B Corps. If you're wanting to go for a B Corp accreditation, probably don't do it when you're changing systems. We bit off more than we can chew, and decided to change from Gmail to Microsoft and to payroll to a new HRIS system, and then launched in the USA. So trying to collect all that data across multiple systems, it was a point where I was like, oh, double handling all these information. But yeah, we got through it, and we collected it and put it all together, and we came out the other end. But there was a moment.
Nice. Yeah, one thing at a time, and B Corp is definitely one thing. Yeah. So in terms of I think, because I know a little bit about all of your businesses to some degree, I think it's fair to say that you all approached B Corp from, I think most companies that are certifying as a B Corp are already of the mindset that I'm thinking in that kind of way. And it's more about how do we reorganize some things to just fit the framework rather than, I think, there are some bigger companies like I'm going to use the N word, Nespresso and Unilever, who had to go on really big journeys of transformation to get even close to passing as a B Corp. But was there anything that you had to change in terms of like your day-to-day operations as a business? Or has becoming a B Corp made you look at any operations in your day-to-day business and you're now kind of going, hey, actually, why do we do that? Anyone want to jump on that one? Simon, I saw a hand move.
Yeah. So, inherited supply chains, stuff that had been, embedded in the business for a long time that we had to relook at, especially with taking on new shareholders and, joining an office with other businesses as well. I think, this goes to your N-word and U-word comment. The way to get through that, from my perspective, is really framing and looking at the long-term objective there. And I take my hat off to established, businesses with longevity that then go and decide, we'd like to become a B Corp because we think it's the right thing to do. Because I can imagine what it's like going through and pulling apart, work that has gone through the same processes for 10, 20 years. And, we obviously didn't have to face as many of those struggles as some of those larger, more established corporates would have. But, just remembering and framing the objective as, we're doing this for the right reason. Once we achieve certification, it's not only about making us a stronger, more resilient business. That's fantastic. And that, from a business perspective, looking at the commercials, that's good. But looking at the other side of that spectrum, knowing that you'll become a more impactful business. And through that, I genuinely believe, and I think everyone else on the call, and hopefully the entire audience, and hopefully more and more of New Zealanders believe that, you're going to create sustainable growth that way. that's really my perspective there, Tim.
Nice, love it. Anyone else want to jump on that one?
I guess for us, talking of supply chain, the big thing for us, most of our stuff, well, all of our stuff really comes from Southeast Asia and all over the place. So one of the big focuses we had was getting together a supplier code of conduct, which we borrowed from Patagonia, thanks, and adapted to our purpose, and then went to all the factories and got them to understand. We even got, way back in the day before ChatGPT, we got someone to translate it into Mandarin, which our Chinese factories laughed at, but at least it was we sort of attempted it. And so that was a big thing because it's important. But then you've got that sort of conundrum where you go to Malaysia, for example, and the workers mostly come from Myanmar and other places. They don't want to have 80-hour weeks. They want to have 120-hour weeks. And they don't want days off because they want to make money to send back to their families. And so you've got this sort of dichotomy of what the Western world thinks they should do compared to what. So there's all that sort of stuff to go through and to try and do it in an open and transparent sort of manner so that everybody ends up getting as close to what they want as they can. But that was a big focus for us because up until then it was like, let's get some stuff and we'll find some factories. So we spent a lot of time working on those factories, and I'm happy to say we have been with most of them for 15 or plus years now.
Nice. I remember having a conversation with you fairly early on in the piece where you were getting some products out of Sri Lanka, and there was like a massive humanitarian issue there, which there were like protests and people in the factory were killed. And you were basically like, okay, we're just not buying from this place anymore. But I remember you at the time saying you knew of at least one other Kiwi company that was kind of like, it's cheap. Yeah. We're going to just keep going. Yeah. And I think that's just like a great example of how if you're true to your purpose and your mission and your commitment, it makes that decision making and the operationalization of stuff. Like I said on my previous talk, it's kind of like you need to have that spiritual, metaphysical, moral guidance of what's the right thing to do, but then how do you capture it and measure it and report it? Well, that's what B Corp's about. I think if you just do B Corp without having that basis of the moral, spiritual, metaphysical side of it, it's flaky. And if you just got the purpose, but you don't know actually whether you're doing any good with it, you're missing out. So, yeah, interesting. Yeah,
it is interesting. I mean, the dark force is very strong, though. I mean, sometimes you want to, forget about it for a minute because there's lots of good commercial reasons. You think, but luckily Obi-Wan is on your shoulder and he tells you to feel the force and you can carry on regardless. But no, it's really interesting, and it's disappointing right up into this day. I could point you to companies in New Zealand who are buying off shocking factories throughout Southeast Asia and putting product into public and private systems, which we've tried to change it, but our government is slow at this sort of labour rights process in New Zealand for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it just doesn't matter at the moment to them.
I think out of all the B Corps I've helped on their journey, supply chain is the one area that most people have got, they just no idea. Even companies with physical products, it's like we buy our stuff off a guy called Dave in Auckland, and he seems like a nice guy, and he takes us for a Christmas dinner, but I don't really know where he's sourcing his stuff from. Like that's even the product-based companies, they haven't really gone down there. So maybe there's a little bit of sort of naivety, maybe that, well, we're nice people in this part of the world. They obviously can't be buying it from bad people because that doesn't happen. I don't know. That actually Steve's comment that leads me to a question. So thoughts of the panelists, should B Corp or at least some kind of proof that you're doing good, should that be mandatory and a legal framework that all businesses should have? Or do you think it's just it's something that as it is currently, if you want to be a B Corp, you can choose to be a B Corp, I guess Steve's kind of partly answered his question around human rights issues. Yeah, there should be something in place. But yeah, what's everyone's thoughts? Like, should it be enforced, or should it just be aspirational and something that people want to come and do?
I can. Am I on? Right. Yep. I can. There's two things. One is things like human rights of people in far-off countries should be protected as much as we can from here. But in terms of doing good, I don't think you can force people to do that. I think you have to want to, and it has to be, and doing good and doing good. I mean, people probably don't think us selling, a couple of 100 million disposable gloves every year is doing good. But, we have one large customer in the US that saves over £1 million of waste every year because they moved to a glove that we gave them. And so it's sort of small steps in terms of doing good, and it's all pretty relative, I guess.
That's one of my favorite expressions. It's all relative.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyone else?
I agree, Steve. I don't think we can really force anyone to do good. But man, I think we're changing as a society, and I know depending on the political mood of the day, sometimes that can change, and we're kind of grappling with that at the moment. But going through a process like this and educating myself, I know it's 100% changed me in the way that I look at products, the way that I purchase, the way that I consume. And I'm keeping an eye on the companies that are not doing good, and I'm not buying from those companies that are not doing good. So I would like to think that that is contagious, and that's going to only grow, where if you're not doing good, we know that employees won't probably want to work for you. Like, we know that. We know, particularly with Gen Z, that they are lifting up the hood around your operations. And then B, from a consumer client perspective, they're probably not going to want to buy or use your services. So to me, it makes market sense, and it also just makes good common sense to do it. And it's just fundamentally the right thing, but we can't force people to do it.
Mm.
Yeah, Tim, if I can jump in there. Completely agree with both Steve and Karen's comments. And, yes, sure, there could be governmental policy that pushes companies towards having to, adhere to some of the pieces that B Corp represents. But from my point of view, you look at the controllable versus the uncontrollable, right? And what's controllable is us as a B Corp community helping each other grow and showing that you can have this intersection of purpose and profit. And the more we succeed, the more other businesses are going to look at us and say, wow, it's doable long term. Maybe we should start thinking about it. From our perspective at Pathfinder, you've got these two concepts that historically sat on opposite ends of the seesaw. And I think it's probably the same for most industries, where you've got, you can interchange these words quite, liberally, but you've got profit on one side and purpose or value or ethics on the other. And, 20 years ago, and there's probably a whole bunch of them still around now, you were to go ask any traditional fund manager, what happens when you lift one oil well, the other one drops, and vice versa. But through our results, and sorry, I'm speaking about Pathfinder here because it's what I understand, is that the more we show that those two concepts can actually be intertwined, the more everyone else goes, oh, okay. And that comes down to results. It comes down to how we represent ourselves, and it does actually come down to jumping on a rooftop and screaming about it.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I tend to agree. I just keep saying it's about if we're all having the best party on the street, people want to come and hang out at the best party. And obviously, the best party is a Fun Lab party, not an S Club party. It's a Fun Lab party. So yeah, I agree. I think if you make things mandatory, or use the, well, as I used to say in the army, we use the carrot and stick. We beat you with the stick until it breaks, and then we throw the carrot at you. Typically that doesn't actually get people that motivated to do stuff. Whereas, hey, that sounds really cool, I want to be a part of it. Yeah. Anything from you, Jay?
No, I totally agree with what everyone said today. And I think it's the responsibility maybe of the external stakeholder groups, i.e. government, local councils, advocacy groups, to put that pressure on as well, to allow us to be a bit further in line. But yeah, I don't believe B Corp can play that part at this stage. The part they play right now is more, enticing us to be part of this community. And build stronger engagement and be on the journey together.
I think that for me was a big part of why I like B Corp was, as an individual, there's only so much change you can affect. Politicians and governments typically do what business wants them to do, like the corporate lobbying. If there was a paper from the US, I think it was like 2020 or maybe a little bit before, where they basically said your vote as an individual does not matter because corporate lobbyists have captured the political class. Like literally, you could vote whichever way you want. Like the decisions that are being made are captured by business. So that was kind of part of my theory of change starting Grow Good is if we can help more businesses become a B Corp and then they do better, they will then start lobbying for the good things, not the bad things. And so it's kind of like, which is why I'm so big on the purpose stuff as well. It's like if we have better individuals working in better businesses, they will demand more of the systems that support them, and then we'll kind of automatically get better legislation to support what business is now demanding. So instead, which I guess you're sort of we've seen in the UK with like the Better Business Act that was driven by B Corp saying, no, actually we want to be held to a higher level of accountability. We want to have to make better decisions as leaders of organizations. So yeah, it's kind of interesting, that one. Yeah. And so which leads quite nicely into the next question. What role do you see B Corps playing in shaping the future of business? Like, is there any specific things that you're seeing in your sector, or any ways that you've like challenged? I mean, I think you all have in many ways. So yeah, what have you been doing that's kind of like challenging the ideals of business and trying to create a better way of doing stuff?
I'm happy to go first here. I'm going to use Steve's force and transform that seesaw into a spectrum, right? And I see either side of that spectrum, one being, activism, the other one being, for lack of a better word, and we'll talk about this in a second, being capitalism. And I see the role of B Corps as being able to redefine the dirty words, making money. That spectrum, if we see it like a spectrum instead of a black and white, either or, yes or no, we understand that every decision we make, yes, has a business implication. Yes, has an implication for our balance sheet. Yes, has an implication for our, stakeholders, etc. But on the other side of it, every decision we make needs to encompass the why, right? And that why needs to look beyond simple profit. It needs to look at influence. It needs to look at the community around us, every single stakeholder we have. And as long as we keep pushing that truth, I'm not even going to say agenda, I genuinely believe that other businesses will catch on. And I've seen that in practice, right? It's about embedding the values that B Corp forces us to bring to the front. So it doesn't force it, helps us to bring to the front. It's about embedding those into every decision we make. And that goes all the way from choosing your supply chain, Steve, to how we engage with potential customers, how we distribute our product, how we, sales, again, a dirty word. I don't think it should be. If you're representing a product that has a positive impact, you should be, like I said, on that roof screaming.
Yeah, 100%.
So as long as we all work together, help each other in that, and focus on the community aspect of it, lifting each other up, I think leading by example is definitely the way to go.
I agree.
I'm happy to dive in there.
Yeah, go Karen.
At PivotalX, we have that privilege of trying to do things internally ourselves before we try it with clients. And I guess the privilege of being a human resource professional is that we are inside an organization. So when we talk to our clients about the linkages between HR and sustainability, we take a really inside, outside, bottom-up approach. So what I mean by that is instead of focusing always on the product and how it looks from a consumer client point of view, which is of course equally important for bottom line, we go, well, hold on, how can sustainability make an impact on that employment life cycle? And we really look to the Sustainable Development Goals to find a linkage point. And this is where I think that B Corps like us can really play a part, because we're not just focusing on the product or the supply chain, where we're focusing really internally around how businesses operate. So if you think about, equitable hiring practices, well, that links to SDG gender equality number 5, and I think it was number 10, reducing equality. So how are you recruiting to make sure that you've got diversity in your workplace? Other things like eco-friendly recruitment packs, links to SDG 13 on climate change. So what are you doing to reduce your paper when you're recruiting? Learning and development, all that type of stuff, there is linkages. So I feel really proud that we can take a different lens to how this is working for organizations, by looking inside and really kind of taking that bottom-up approach. And we know if we've got productive, efficient, happy workers, then that only makes for a better value proposition and a better organization from the outside. So that's, I think, the role that we can play in all of this as well, Tim.
Nice. Anything on that one, Steve, or ready for the next?
I guess one of the things that really struck, I was very lucky to have gone to a number of B Lab retreats in the States, and the 3 founders of B Lab, or B Corp and B Lab, were incredibly wise, looking back, connecting the dots. One of the things, it came up on several occasions at the retreats, where people would say you shouldn't be able to be a B Corp in the US unless you pay a living wage, or you shouldn't be able to be a B Corp unless you have some sort of green energy thing. And they kept saying that as soon as we become politically lenient in any way, we isolate half the country in the States. And we know that there's 2 sides in the States. And I thought it was really incredibly wise, because it's open to everybody. So you've got a Nestle, and I think we should welcome them with open arms, and that may not go down well with everybody, because they're much better being on the same ship as us, in the waka rather than outside. And then we can help them, get better if that's what we think they need to be. And it's just, it's as soon as something becomes political, you start isolating parts of the population. And the big thing is, when we became a B Corp, one of the things I loved about it, and I still love about it, it was about being a better business. And part of being a better business is being profitable. And so you can't change the world, wearing a sackcloth and leather shoes, walking down a dusty road. You've got to actually be profitable, be able to hire good people, pay them well, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm talking to the converted, but it's just, those things are really important, that we don't forget what we're here for, which is to build a better business. And the last thing I'll say is the thing that B Corp is to me is the general store in the movie Bonanza, or those sort of things, where the general store was the hub of the community, and it just kept giving back. If you're a bit short of $1 that week, you'd got a bag of flour anyway, and next time you came in, it would work. So if you remember those movies, which most of you probably don't, to be fair, but I think that's what it is. It's if you get back to basics, it's just about being a good business, and we all know what that means, and we don't need sort of too much education, I don't think.
Totally. And that's something I was talking about in my previous session on like purpose. Like back in the day, we literally named, well, it says a lot about Simon and his approach to sales, that his surname is Leach. Because I was going to say, like, you were named after the contribution that you made. So, Taylor, obviously Jay comes from a family of people making beautiful clothing in the UK. But, we had like butcher, baker, shoemaker, you were named after the contribution that you made. And if you were a bad blacksmith, working in a little community, you were making poor quality items and you were dumping your waste in the water supply, it's not long before the rest of the community go, hey Tim, actually could you maybe move to the next village, because you're really not helping us here. And I think, like I say, purpose and impact, it sounds, it's complicated and where do we start, but actually it's quite simple. It's kind of like the classic just don't be a dick. It's like, if I told my mum what I just done, would she be proud of me? Like that is kind of like a baseline, is that I just ripped off my supply chain, I screwed them down on price, and we're shipping a really inferior product to our customers. I'm sure mum would be really proud of me to know that. It's like, probably not. Right, we're finally going to get to Tim's question. Timothy O'Brien, Tim 1 of Purpose. So his question specifically was, he's interested in how useful B Corp Cert helps New Zealand companies enter new markets, but which is kind of, I think, 3 out of the 4 of you have entered new markets. I'm guessing Pathfinder not so much. So we'll broaden the question, I think, specifically for the three of you that are entering new markets, if you can answer that specifically. And then we'll broaden it for Simon just to say, well, in general, how has B Corp benefited your business? So maybe we'll start with Steve on this one, because, you know, you are the OGB and you have entered into quite a big market, partially on the back of your B Corp work. So we'll start there.
Yeah, I mean, it was it was interesting for starters. But we moved to the US in 2016, and we knew a guy called Mike Hannigan, who was one of the original B Corps in the States. He owned a business called Give Something Back, which was like an Office Max, but a good one. And I'm not saying Office Max isn't a good one, but I mean, it was a Give Something Back.
A slightly better one.
Yes. And he was a great guy. And we walk into his office in Oakland, and he says, "You can sit over there. Here's a telephone, you know, etc." And he just made us really welcome. And then we basically reached out to a whole lot of B Corps, and we have a number of them as customers over the years. So it was just being able to walk into a community that you knew some people, that just made all the difference. And just ask questions like, I mean, I said the other day I was interviewed by a newspaper, and they said, "What was the first thing that happened in the States?" And I said, "Well, I got a phone call from the IRS a week after I arrived in the US. The police were on the way to arrest me, and I was going to go to jail unless I paid my back taxes immediately." And I said, "Well, I haven't even been paid yet, so how could I pay tax? You know, I've only been here a week." Anyway, it was the first of many spam calls that you get in the States, and the reason no one ever answers the phone. So just being able to ask questions about those sort of, you know, local knowledge things was really critical for us.
Nice. Karen, how about you? Yeah,
we're only scratching the surface really, Tim, here, because December 2024, and as you know, I've been recovering from my really serious skiing accident as a fellow skier in Tim. So even on our call on Monday, one of our team members had this great idea around how we can better connect with other B Corps, which we're 100% going to do, and we're excited to launch that really, really soon with what we will do in that space. But I'm excited. I think we haven't even scratched the surface of what we can do to enter new markets. And I think the biggest thing that we just need to keep doing is really finding ways to demonstrate that we haven't lost sight of what we're trying to achieve with getting the B Corp certification, but also just really with our sustainability strategy. And you know, with businesses, you kind of come in and out. There's roller coasters. There's things that happen all the time, and you've just got to jolt yourself and remind yourself to just keep going and find ways to continuously demonstrate your value. So I'm excited to enter new markets, Tim. It'll be great.
Nice. And Jay, you guys, I guess it's slightly tough for you and Karen, because you're kind of just entering those markets. But yeah, how has B Corp been a part of that journey for you guys at FunLab?
Yeah, I don't want to predict the future, but I tell you what I think's going to happen. We just, of course, got our accreditation in November. We're about to launch our PR campaign on it actually during B Corp month. So it's any day soon as March comes to an end. So we've been working really hard to make sure we can land this and share it out there. But what I can say that I think it will do, it will, as we're growing in the United States, I honestly think it will have a positive impact on our brand and on awareness, and the people that come to us, the future motherfunners out there that want to work for a business that has these type of values that relate to them, right? It will build trust, it will build the credibility, the confidence that they have in us, based on, I suppose, being in a B Corp, right? And as we continue growing, we know we can do more in this space, but I just think it's going to play a great part in future talent out there, future relationships as well. Like we just did a few external relationships last year, and I'm excited to what we can do this year as well. And people are coming to us when they will come to us when they say that we are a B Corp. So yeah, watch this space. Nice.
And just having been a bit of a part of your journey, like, again, knowing the good stuff that you guys do, particularly around like supporting people with disabilities into employment, like you say, very inclusive environments for people with disabilities. It's like, it's just a, you know, why wouldn't you want to come and hang out and you know, hopefully Kylie and her crew come back for another night out tonight, maybe on the back of hearing how even more awesome you are from just having a great experience in your buildings. But yeah, it's definitely been like Ben from Almighty yesterday was talking about how his team led the B Corp and how it's just led to people wanting to come and work for him. And Wendy from Kin, I don't know if Karen knows Wendy from Kin.
Yeah.
She's always talking about how the companies that they represent, because they do placements, like the companies that are B Corp certified get more and better candidates. So I have no doubt that will ring true for you guys in the States. Simon, any thoughts from you in terms of like business benefits more broadly?
Yeah, listen, generally going last in a question's great because you get time to formulate a response, but everyone else is so interesting that I lose track. I've written it down. Jay, first off, good luck for your PR campaign, mate. I hope it goes well. You're asking about entering new markets, and essentially that's it's a distribution function, but it's also a cultural function. I'm going to answer and hopefully touch on what you're looking for, but having that B Corp piece really encourages structure and accountability, which you need, especially when you're making a big step into a new space. And it's kind of at the same time a bit of a litmus test for actually doing what you say you're doing, which brings me to the fact that B Corp, from my point of view, lends to the lens, so NDS to the LENS of mutual benefit. And that's how I approach absolutely everything. Everything we do here is about mutual benefit and looking for that, finding it, and anchoring your purpose towards it. Now, yes, leeches suck blood, but at the same time, and that's not a dig, Tim, you go for it, mate. At the same time, they also remove impurities, poison, bacteria, etc. So there was a mutual benefit in that space as well, and that's that's how we run our everything. Most of you would have heard from at least one of our relationship managers reaching out, and we're not afraid to do that. And having that B Corp piece in the background is something that gives you the confidence to do it and helps, because people see that and understand that mutual benefit is baked into your business model. And nice. I often say, like, the more mutual benefit, you get 2-way mutual benefit, 3-way, 4-way, infinity mutual benefit probably exists. Haven't found it yet, but we'll get there. The more, the merrier. So, what I'd say to anyone looking to enter an emerging market is anchor yourself on that, anchor the approach on that mutual benefit piece.
Nice. And I think, when you look at like the long-term resilience of B Corps, I think I'm trying to get hold of someone from University of Canterbury, but if anyone else at any of the other university wants to have a conversation, I'd like to do a study of B Corps to see if it is that mutual relationships that we have across customers, employees, and other stakeholders. I think that's why B Corps are more resilient, because when it comes to tough times like the pandemic, where B Corps were more likely to survive, I think if you're like Steve and you've got really good relationships with your supply chain built on trust and respect, they will do what they can to see you through. If you've been, benevolent to your employees, they will go, okay, yeah, we get it. Like, it's a tough time. We're all happy to compromise here. Whereas if you're what I call big evil bastards Inc., everyone just looks at you and goes, yeah, but you shafted us for the last 10 years. I actually don't care. I'm going to go and pay the nice guys over here because they've looked after me. And I that's my theory. And I want to try and get a study done on it. We've got a comment from Pancham in India. So Pancham and I connected. He was the first B Corp specific ad I'd ever been targeted with on LinkedIn. It literally said, "Are you a B Corp? Click here because we can help you." And I'm like, that's amazing. I was going to ring him because I've never seen an ad targeted to a B Corp. Unfortunately, so because Pancham's in India, they cannot certify as a B Corp because there is no B Lab in India at the minute. So no companies can be a B Corp. But we've been having some conversations. He's actually been to the Champions Retreat in the States before I have. That's how keen he is to be a B Corp. So shout out to Pancham. And he's also been helping me on a little project to try and get my podcast out to more people. So cheers for listening in all the way from India. Look at that. We are global. We're almost at time, and I've seen we've got Andrew Garnsworthy from Pedal Group is in the green room ready for our final session, and I need to go and have a quick glass of water before I get stuck into the final session. So really, really quick fire, last question. If you could ask the audience to do one thing today that would advance the B Corp movement forward, what would it be?
I can go there, but I'm just going to totally ignore your question if that's all right.
I would expect nothing less from Steve.
Thank you. One of the things I think you should be congratulated for, Tim, is the way you've been an advocate since we met in 2013 or something like that, when you were much better looking and younger. But it made me think of a thing. I don't know if you know Derek Sivers. He's an author, and he owns City Baby. I think he might even be living in New Zealand again now.
I think
but
he does.
He did that video, First Follower, if you've seen it. First, look it up on YouTube. First Follower Leadership Lessons from a Dancing Guy. It's excellent. And if I'm the shirtless guy dancing drunk at the concert, you're that next dude who keeps falling over because you get the crowd. And I think once you've seen it, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But I think
I'll put it in the comments.
Yeah, I think it's really worth watching. And Tim, you should be proud of yourself for what you've done and continue to do. And that's the last time I'm ever going to say something nice to you. So just don't.
It's all right. I've got it on video. I'll just keep it on a loop. Oh, dearie me. Anyway, can anyone else beat that? Anyone else? What's the one thing that people can go and do to push the B Corp movement forward?
I'm happy to dive in. I've got two, Tim, sorry. If you're a B Corp, buy from B Corp, support B Corps. We can only just help each other out as much as we possibly can. And I just can't stop being an HR professional. Try and drive the sustainability culture within your organizations. There's so many things that you can do to really not only get your board and your executive leadership team on board, but also your staff. And once you're on the train, you can't get off. So that's my two pieces there, not one, Tim.
Nice. It's all good. You're all just going rogue. I know I should have got better caliber of panelists for this. You're uncontrollable. Simon, what do you got?
Oh, mate, yeah, there's zero chance I'm keeping a one. Luckily, Karen took the words out of my mouth there. Collaborate. That's it. Collaborate, look for mutual benefit, and don't be afraid to ask. Yes. I'll put it out there right now. Anything we can do to help within our power, we will. So reach out, collaborate, focus on the B Corp community, and let's grow this all together. Yes, let's bring other people in. Absolutely. But let's also lift each other up.
Nice. And Jay, last words to you.
Yeah, and your B Corp business or non-B Corp businesses continue fostering a culture of genuine commitment and continuous improvement, right? And I think that's the journey that B Corp took FunLab on, and I know that you can take yourself on that journey if you do that. Bit of loyalty, bit of commitment.
Nice.
To what's good.
Well, that is pretty perfect timing. It gives me about 3 minutes to go and quickly recharge my glass of water before we get on to the final session, the one-to-one with Andrew, who is sitting eagerly in the green room. But thank you all so much for being willing participants and panelists. And thanks for all the amazing work that you're all doing, because you're all working in different industries in different ways, but all with this, I've still got the little poster here on next to me. It's all about being best for the world, not best in the world. And it's not a phrase that the B Corp B Lab uses so much anymore, but it certainly was when Steve and I first met, and it was kind of something that really resonated. And I think it's something that you're all doing, and it's why I call my B Corp coaching program Be Better. It's like, let's use B Corp as a framework to be better than you were yesterday or today, and that's all we can ask you to do. So yes, thank you so much. I will eject you all from the room. Obviously, if people want to go and connect with these fine humans, you'll find them on LinkedIn. They've been tagged to death on social media, so if you can't find them, your internet's probably broken. Cool. All right. Well, thank you, team. Yes, I will just put the music on for one last time. Where have we gone? Media assets. That's what we're looking for. The music is called Daydreaming, and it is the stock music from StreamYard. So if you don't like it, you can have a conversation with them. Right, cool. I will duck out. I will quickly go and get some water, and I'll be back in about a minute, and we'll be talking to Andrew. See you in a second, Andrew. for that. 3, 2, 1. We are back in the room. Let's find turn the music off for you. There we go. And we will take the banner off. There we go. Look at that. 3 o'clock on the dot. We've recharged the water. Happy days are here to stay. So I shall bring Andrew to the stage. There we go. G'day. Kia ora. How's it going, Andrew?
Hi, Tim. How are you?
Good, man. I'm just thinking I should have probably just got a camelback from 99 Bikes to wear for the 3 hours rather than having to keep ducking out to go and fill my water bottle up. But hey, I'll go get one afterwards.
Yeah, we can help you out.
I'm sure you can. So for people who haven't heard of Andrew Garnsworthy or Pedal Group or 99 Bikes, who are you and what are you up to? What are you doing?
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Tim. And thanks for having me today. In terms of, my name's Andrew Garnsworthy. I'm the CEO of Pedal Group. And Pedal Group is I'll go back a step in terms of just from a personal perspective. Based in Brisbane, I'm a father of 3 kids. I've got 3 young kids, 2 girls and a boy, 8, 9 and 12. So in the midst of a fairly busy period of a lot of school activities, sports, ballet, etc., swimming, which keeps us busy, which is fantastic. And I guess from a work perspective, Pedal Group's a business that is the parent company of a global business. We've got 3 main arms. 99 Bikes is probably the most familiar for those in Australia or New Zealand, and we've also got a couple of stores in the UK as well, which keeps things interesting from a time zone perspective.
I could imagine. Yeah. There's just I mean, I've had a few UK based clients, and it just does make your life tricky when you're needing to sort stuff out in this time zone and that time zone. So yeah, and I have a 12-year-old daughter going on 28, who's about to become a teenager. So and she's also into dance. So yeah, I feel
right.
I kind of feel your vibe, feel where you're currently at for sure. So how did you get into being CEO of the Pedal Group? Because you've got a bit of you don't come from just like a pure sports background. You've had a bit of so tell us a bit about how Pedal Group even came into existence, or 99 Bikes, and a bit of that backstory.
Yeah, I'll tell that story first in terms of Pedal Group. Pedal Group was founded in 2008 as a joint venture between the Turner family and Flight Centre, the global travel agent. A few stores in New Zealand with Flight Centre. Yep. And in terms of, ultimately it was a business that was set up with, 1 store, which started 1 store in Milton in Brisbane under the 99 Bikes banner. And then also a wholesale business, which was basically an importing arm that brought in bikes, mainly under the Merida bike brand, from Taiwan and also from China, just to allow a little bit more vertical integration in terms of wholesale and retail. So the business was founded, and probably following a similar theory with Flight Centre, founded in the 80s when travel was very fragmented. A lot of independently owned travel stores, no one necessarily coming together from a retail perspective, which is where Flight Centre found a niche with focus on airfares. And they've had an amazing model, driven a lot by their philosophies. And essentially we've come along and we've taken a lot of those. Most of the philosophies have worked and most of the business model, but there's a few things that are completely different where we've learned sometimes the hard way around what we need to do to have a successful business.
Nice. It seems to me the only way to really learn is the hard way. It feels like trying to learn from other people's mistakes is nice in theory, but you typically need to fall off your bike a few times to remind yourself or to really learn the lessons. So 99 Bikes and B Corp, as someone who, I've got a couple of mates who probably won't be listening, so I can say as a cyclist, and they'll be like, "Yeah, when was the last time you actually got on it?" Yeah, but that's a different story. I've done a bit of cycling over the years. For a sport and activity that is, fundamentally about being in the outdoors predominantly, it's not really been one where sustainability or doing good or has really been at the forefront. And certainly there's not many B Corps. Well, I'd be pretty confident you must be one of the only bike retailers that's a B Corp. Obviously there is some apparel companies. I'm sure what's the is it the Scottish Crew that you guys sell is a B Corp? Is that right? One of the brands that you represent, I'm pretty sure I've seen it.
Endura, maybe.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they're a B Corp. So there's like little pockets of it, but it's certainly, over the last couple of days, we've explored, particularly in the food and beverage industry, like B Corp is kind of everywhere. But yeah, yours is not an industry awash with B Corp. So where has purpose kind of sat in your organization? Because looking at your website, you've got a whole page on purpose and impact and all the good that you do. Like, you don't see that on other bike stores. You don't see that. So where did that kind of come from for you as a leader? Have you always been a purpose-driven person who's always been doing bake sales or picking up litter on their street, or has this come to you later in life, like it did for me?
Yeah, I think just in terms of, I guess, from a company perspective, if I go back a step, in terms of the founder of our business, Matt Turner, he watched a movie in 2006, The Inconvenient Truth, Al Gore on climate change. And Matt really had an epiphany that, okay, we need to lock cars out of the city. There's too much pollution. We need to be promoting health in terms of healthy mental health, physical health, get cars off the roads. And it was a big sort of, he was a triathlete and a active cyclist as well. And it probably just, really from when we were founded, there really was a focus on everyday riders. We weren't chasing the high-end professional cyclists or high-end bikes. We're just helping out. How can we enable more people to be healthy, more people to get on bikes? And it was driven from that movie. Was a big catalyst, I'd say, in terms of at that point we weren't really labeling it purpose as such. That probably only happened 5 to 10 years later, when we sat down with people across the business and really asked the question, why is it that you enjoy working for our business? And then we got a mismatch of answers, and essentially it was distilled to, our company purpose is to enrich mind, body, earth, or soul with the freedom of riding. And the feedback from across the business was, some people like it because they're helping people to be healthy. Some people like it because they're helping cars get off the road. And there's other aspects in between that I can sort of expand on as well. So I think from a company perspective, in our DNA was purpose. And I think for me personally, originally I came from a accounting and investment banking background, and I wouldn't say purpose was naturally embedded in either of those type of industries, where there's a lot of focus on profit, as an example. And it was probably only really as I spoke to more and more people across our business across Australia and New Zealand, and you can talk numbers all you like, people's eyes glazed over, so to speak. It was only really when we actually talked about what's the impact we're making and how we're doing good, or where we need to be better, was where there was real engagement. So it was probably at that moment that I became a convert, so to speak.
Nice. So the first session of day 2 I did was all about purpose and impact and meaning, and how that it all kind of connects, and how B Corp is a part of it. But if you don't have that sense of purpose and understanding and that meaning, and like actually, it's really easy to get disconnected in, I'm sure your stores have got sales targets, like, guys, we have to sell X number of units to keep the lights on. But you forget maybe that you are helping a family get their kid on their first bike, and what that means to a kid, and what those and sometimes it can sound a bit hallmarky, like, we're helping kids live their best lives, but generally the delight that I remember with our daughter when she we had one of those little the bikes, like the balance bikes, and
Yeah.
literally on the second attempt, she was riding a bike without stabilizers, and just the smile. Like I still remember exactly where we were. Like that's a moment etched in our family that your shop has possibly facilitated. And if you don't, if that doesn't mean anything to you, then you're probably in the wrong bike shop. But like you say, there's different strands of that meaning, whether it's, well, we're helping someone get out of the car and it's going to make them healthier and it's going to mean one less car polluted and clogging up the roads. It's like, if you've got that sense of meaning, and it does really feel, having, as a customer in your store, that it's genuinely there. Whereas, again, in the previous or the first session today, I talk about the difference between purpose light, which is kind of like, well, we've been told that this has to be our purpose and we don't really believe it. And when it gets tough, we probably actually will completely ignore our values and this purpose. But you guys have got it baked in, which is really, really cool. So go you.
Yeah, and I think in terms of like from a parent perspective, as one, and we've got a lot of parents across our business. I guess the impact that becomes obvious as there becomes more and more challenges with some of the crisis, like screen times for kids, I think is a looming future disaster in terms of the amount of time kids are spending on iPads and on games, and then the difference in behaviour you see after it could be going for a bike ride, or it could be going for a walk or a jog outside. It could be multiple levels of activity. So it does help double down on the impact it is making and it could make in terms of for families and kids into the future.
Yeah, again, just getting that connection is really clear. I did a purpose session for a company that's involved in sort of the outdoor industry a few years back, and they hadn't made the connection to the fact that people coming to their place leave that place in a better mental state, and mental health is one of the big issues facing Western society. Yeah, it's kind of really interesting that people don't always make that connection. So it's really cool that you've got that team, your team have got that connection and understand it. And that clearly makes a difference in terms of your, how they turn up and how they want to work, which, like I say, I call it purpose fuel performance. It's like this untapped fuel that most companies just are not connected to. But if you do connect it, and it's hard to put your finger on it because it is like a vibe. It's an energy. It's not a spreadsheet, and most businesses are built around the spreadsheet. And I think that's part of the challenge for modern businesses is to get out of the spreadsheet and feel the vibe of the organization. So yeah, kudos to you for making that happen and for connecting to it, because there's many people that would have gone, yeah, this all feels a bit woo, and I think we should get back to the numbers. So yeah,
definitely. And it's one of the challenges. We have a very decentralized business model in terms of ultimately the stores and the different teams and business leaders are running their own business, so to speak. Whilst it's not a franchise structure, we do try and enable a lot of autonomy, a lot of ownership around decision making. So just in terms of that, that does present, like, it's fantastic for buy-in decisions. It also does mean rollouts are a lot more difficult because of that counterbalance that we have with a lack of centralization. So we do need to get a lot of buy-in, and I think the one thing I realized through this B Corp process is it wasn't that difficult because we already thought we were reasonably well, and B Corp probably showed us that we had a fair bit of work to do to be able to step up and do things better on a standardized basis across the business.
But it sounds like, as I was saying on the previous session, I think most of the companies that I've worked with on B Corp, and most of the B Corps that I see, certainly in New Zealand, I'd say mainly in Australia too, you already had the mindset, like you were behaving like a B Corp before you did B Corp. I think there's less companies that use B Corp as a truly transformational tool to go from, like I said in the previous section, like we are currently Big Evil Bastards Inc. We just care about making money, and we don't give do not give a rat's about people or planet, and we want to be completely different. I don't think there's many companies that are using it in that way. I think most companies that are approaching B Corp now, there's already a sense that, hey, actually we do some good stuff here. Maybe we should just check and see how much good we are actually doing, and what does better now look like? So yeah. So when did B Corp pop up on the radar for the company?
It was probably about 5 years ago. We were looking at how can we benchmark ourselves against purpose-driven companies and companies that are strong from an ESG perspective around the world. So it popped up there as an idea around, okay, well, is that something that we should pursue? We investigated and thought, okay, we didn't jump into it straight away. We just probably went through a learning phase because we weren't going, okay, initially we just want to become a B Corp. It was more around, okay, what is the accreditation? How does it work? How will it help our business? So yeah, we learned about it, we understood, and then we decided to go, okay, well, let's see how we're performing. So I think it was funny that the first time that we did the BIA, we had a working group of 4 across different areas of the business, and we ran through it, and it really was a good eye opener that we weren't as good as we thought we were. I think our score was definitely well under 80 when we went through a draft run, and it was probably at that point that we thought, okay, there's some higher standards here, and we do need to pull our socks up, and at that point there was engagement to benchmark ourselves externally and actually see where we can improve. So yeah, that was sort of a bit of the journey there.
Nice. And was there a particular company or conversation that brought B Corp into your mind, or just like a general? You just started did you just start seeing, because like Patagonia is quite often cited as a company that people are like, yeah, I kind of heard of it through Patagonia. Like I think if you could track how many B Corps they've given birth to, it would be quite high. But yeah, was there a brand or a person that you connected with who brought it to you?
Yeah, I think a little bit more locally. Kathmandu across Australia and New Zealand, which is also a B Corp, was a benchmark around, okay, understanding, okay, there can be a broader multi-store retailer in a different industry to ours.
Yeah,
that
kind of aligned,
that is publicly listed as well. Yeah, so I thought, okay, there's something in this, and if they can make some of the changes to constitution, etc., well, we don't have any excuses. We need to crack on with it.
Nice, that's cool. Yeah, so we had Shasta O'Loughlin, who is the sustainability lead for KMD yesterday. She came from the Rip Curl brand, but she led the research of all their brands. So poor Shasta, she had to do like four sub brands all rolled up into one certification. So if you need to have a conversation with her, I'm sure I can connect you. She'll give you some top tips as to
fantastic
how to navigate the complexities of some of that stuff. But that's cool. Because I know Kathmandu were quite heavily influenced by Patagonia, and that's really cool to see now that Kathmandu are now influencing. Because shout out to Tim Loftus, he had worked for Patagonia for a couple of years and had seen what they were doing, and then he was the brand manager at Kathmandu, who really led the B Corp journey. With another shout out to Ollie Milliner, who was their sustainability manager at the time. So they kept ringing me because they were sort of trying to get the evidence to convince the board and get the shareholders. They're like, hey, can you go and find some data about performance of apparel companies and B Corp? So I then go and ring B Lab and try and get some data and send it through. Because I was like, oh my god, imagine if we get Kathmandu as a B Corp, because when they did certify, they were the first big retailer in this region, and the more retail brands that we have, the more we get the story out to more people, because they can connect to B Corp. They go to the local store here in Hornby down the road and they meet your amazing team and they have the conversation, they see the B, and it's like, what's that thing? And that's how we grow the movement. So yeah, it's kind of interesting connecting the dots of how it's ended up where it's ended up.
Yeah, very.
Was there so yeah, you talked about the legal requirement, and that's kind of interesting. Again, I think most companies that I come across who are wanting to do B Corp, when they understand the requirement to update their constitutional articles of incorporation, most of them are like, to be honest, we already run, that's kind of how we make our decisions already. Was that the case for you guys, or were there any conversations that you had to have around, okay, is there a loss of control here? We're not comfortable. Does this mean we can't make money?
Yeah, it wasn't straightforward, I'll be honest. It is in line with how we would make decisions from a a management team and a board perspective. However, one of our major shareholders is Flight Centre Limited. And they've obviously got their own shareholders as a publicly listed company. So needing to have their approval for this change to the constitution, it wasn't straightforward. It was trying to explain, review, how is it any different to what we're doing at the moment? And the answer was it wasn't much different. However, from a legal perspective, and does this open us up to future risks from a governance perspective, or various actions if we're listed in the future? They become some of the conversations. It was nothing that we couldn't work through, so to speak. However, it wasn't just bang, let's just change it and away we go, which I think was actually positive, because it challenged us around, how do we make sure we're living by this across decisions, and before we made the change. And then we needed to actually bring in a full annual general meeting with shareholders, and some of our shareholders are employee shareholders as well. We've got a big number of employee shareholders, and explaining what this is and getting votes was a good process to ensure it's embedded and it's not just being changed to meet the B Corp side of things.
Yeah, I think that's a very common. Depending on the size of the company, like obviously Karen on the panel just before, small business, we're already behaving this way, easy. In fact, for most small Kiwi companies, it's not, because in New Zealand you don't have to have a constitution. When you start a company here, you're automatically governed by the Companies Act, which is basically a constitution kind of pre-done for you. So the biggest challenge for most small Kiwi businesses, we just don't have a constitution. But there's people like me who can give you a template constitution that has the legal requirement, and we can fix that. But with the bigger companies, it's normally that conversation, and it's normally a pretty good split. I'd say, that kind of 80-20 of most of the board are like, we kind of get it, we're already behaving that way. And then the 20% are like, but, putting, I guess it's the Bono black hat on, like, what's the risk here? What's the challenge? But in general, the way I kind of think about it is you're holding the shareholders and owners are going to hold you accountable to that. So it's not necessarily, you're not really at any extra risk. Clearly, I'm not a lawyer, this is not legal advice. You are not at any sort of extra risk of external stakeholder pressure or legal cases any more than if you were found out to be not paying minimum wage to any of your team, or like this kind of, it's actually it sounds like this really big thing, but actually it's not that big, but it is actually quite important, because it does lock your governance around the idea of we just need to make sure we do consider all stakeholders and our long-term purpose, not just the immediate, does this make us more money? But as we've seen from all the people we've spoken to over the last couple of days, like you can do okay financially and do good. So tell us a bit more about so you've got shareholders, you've got internal employee ownership, basically. Has that always been the case with the organisation, or was that something that you've kind of rolled out, or
No, it hasn't been the case. It's been there about 10 years now. In terms of 2015, Matt Turner, who owns 25% of the group, he decided he wanted a lot of the team to be on the same page in terms of as an owner of the business, and decided to, let's say, spin off some of his equity in the business to employees. And it was a really nice gesture that really did get alignment across the group and real ownership. And we've expanded that in terms of, we've got an annual program, and this is fairly unusual for a private company. We've got an annual program where employees have the option to buy into the group, and we also do have a gift share program where across Australia and New Zealand we give permanent employees free shares each year as a just part of I guess exposure to the program. I think it's 2,000 in New Zealand and 1,000 in Australia, so a bit more generous in NZ.
Nice. But again, I wonder how much of this is you guys. It's kind of like, you know, you're the fish in water. There's not many retail companies that give shareholding to frontline teams. You know, that's not that normal. And historically, the experience of going into a local bike shop has not been that great, because it's transient staff who are there for a short amount of time, and it's like, I'm probably just going to try and sell you the highest margin item that I can, and we kind of all know that. And you know, some, yes, you build a bit of a relationship with like maybe the store manager or the owner, who's typically there for a bit longer, but in general, like the turnover is pretty high. So what have you noticed, or how does that change? Like, it's like I say, having been a customer of you guys, it's kind of like you just notice the difference in the team just seem to care a bit more. They give kind of more meaningful solutions rather than you can just go and buy one. It's like, hey, actually, we could probably work a solution here. What have you noticed?
I'd probably put it down to a set of philosophies that we live by that are not just a poster on a wall. Ownership is one of our major philosophies from a company perspective, which is treating the business as your own, and that sort of autonomy to make your decisions in terms of what's going to be a good decision around who you recruit, or value you offer to customers, and that sort of thing. So I think through our recruitment, that's who we attract. And if there's people who aren't into taking ownership and like to externalize or blame other things, that's okay. Just probably means they're not a fit for our business. So I think from having that as a lived philosophy within our business, it does then translate. And then when these program ideas come along, it's okay, well, this fits well.
Yeah. Nice. Because I mean, when I used to be a medical device rep, and in the sales world, they always say, like, you know, you need to treat this business like it's your own. And it's like, well, that's great, but I get none of the upside and all of the downside. Whereas, you know, by giving that option for skin in the game, it's like, cool, okay, so I actually get, you know, I will think of this more like my own business, because it actually is my, you know, it's partly my own business. I mean, it's really interesting. Like, some of the highest performing B Corps across all metrics are worker-owned entities, or have a proportion of worker ownership. I interviewed Brooke, who is CEO and founder of Sharesies. They're a New Zealand-based B Corp that initially started with sort of democratizing the share market, but they've just recently acquired, I can never remember the name. I always want to say Opera, but I don't think that's right. Anyway, they recently acquired a company that facilitated the ESOP schemes and employee ownership schemes, and so they're now working trans-Tasman to get more companies into that idea. And it's quite cool that you're doing it. 'Cause like I say, it's just really interesting when you see companies doing stuff that's not that normal, and it's working for you. It's like, well, that's cool. Right, let's get more people to, you know, hopefully you're going to be the Kathmandu now to some other retailers. You go, well, if 99 Bikes can do it, we can do it.
Hopefully. And these things aren't, as you say, they're not conventional. And when the program was set up, the default becomes, okay, well, how do we do this in a quasi way? How do we have, I don't know, ghost shares or replicate ownership through different means? And that becomes the opportunity to work through and go, okay, well, no, that's not what the objective here is, to have real ownership. Let's try and sort that out. And it becomes expensive as well. We've got to have an annual valuation each year, and there's compliance costs. However, it's a drop in the ocean compared to the value of having everyone on the same page. And as there are, you know, benefits with good performance, the dividends can flow to shareholders as well.
Nice. And do you track like employee engagement and stuff like that? Have you? I mean, and if you do you compare yourselves to do you get good industry data to like compare 99 Bikes to other outdoor retailers? Like, is it that granular, or retail in general?
There's not too much bike industry information. The information is typically importing data and very little on a people side.
Yeah.
In terms of like it's one of our areas as part of our ESG plan, which we'll be rolling out, which is in place in terms of a report on our website. One of the activities for this year is an annual employee-wide survey. So it's one thing that we weren't doing. That was flagged as an opportunity through the B Corp process that we'll be adding to our, I guess, suite of what we're doing from an employee feedback perspective.
Nice. Yes, I mean, I've just put a link to your website. It's not many any retailers, certainly not bike shops, have got a tab purpose initiatives on their website where you talk about the stuff that you're doing, and there's clearly some really good stuff that you are doing, because I guess we think about cycling and getting in the outdoors as being pretty sustainable and good for the planet, but it's the same. Like my other big I'm trying to get more onto the bike. Hopefully this conversation will inspire me to get out on my bike more. But skiing is my other big passion. And you kind of think that skiing, well, you're in the outdoors, it's not much impact. But then you go, well, there's the wax on your skis that's being, deposited on the mountain. There's the litter, there's the driving to the mountain. There's, you now have ski lifts on the side of a hill that didn't have ski lifts on it before. So actually there's quite a big impact. And I guess it's the same really for a bike shop. I mean, there's lots of inner tubes, tires, spokes. So what are you? What's like the big challenge for you in the sector that you see, and how are you working to solve it?
Yeah, we've taken some steps. There's definitely some challenges and opportunities with waste. We've got to the point that the majority of our stores recycle tires and tubes, with that product being recycled and turned back into playgrounds and athletics tracks and those sort of things.
Nice.
In terms of, whilst we're set up with soft plastic recycling, there is a continual challenge with I guess product coming from factories, in terms of they seem obsessed with using non-recyclable packaging and a lot of plastics. So that's something we're taking a bit more control through our own direct product to make changes and reduce the amount of zip ties, reduce the amount of soft plastic in the product that we receive in store. However, it needs a lot more work is the honest perspective around that. And then we have, and really proud of this, a lot of our locally driven initiatives, and this is not a national program, where we will partner with different bodies. In Western Australia is a good example. In Perth, with Dismantle, which is a group that looks after disadvantaged kids who might be struggling in school or come from challenged homes, and they don't really have a clear direction. And we'll partner with a charity such as them, where essentially customers will bring in their bike when they're buying a new one. We'll take the bike so it avoids landfill, and then we'll donate that to the Dismantle group. And then it gives these kids a real purpose to refurbish a bike, take it apart, learn how it all works, reconstruct it, paint it, have some pride in what they've achieved. And then either have it for a bike for themselves or someone else who's disadvantaged as well. So just it has that sort of full circle. And a lot of these initiatives are locally driven. There's the Lighthouse Group in Adelaide is another example, and Brainwave in our Melbourne stores. I think we've got a bit of opportunity to set something up across our Auckland and Christchurch stores, to be honest. So if there's anyone who's got similar aligned charities, I would love to hear. But there's some of the initiatives that are making a difference to reduce energy needs and also recycle what we can.
Nice. And so you, because obviously with Pedal Group, you you kind of operate on both sides of it. So 99 Bikes is the retail outlet, but under Pedal Group, you've got, what's the other company you've got, which is like the distributor?
It's called
import
Advanced
side.
Traders.
Advanced
which
Traders.
is
That's it.
yeah.
And so you're actively procuring your own, where you can't get a great solution, you're kind of actively seeking your own solution. I guess sort of two questions on that. So Steve from Eagle Protect on the previous on the panel, he's had to work pretty hard with supply chain, and as he was saying, he first certified as a B Corp in 2012, and back then having conversations, it's kind of like, what do you want about? Like, why do you want to have a better product? It's like you literally makes no sense. Have you found, like, you've obviously, you just mentioned that you've had some challenges trying to get supply chain to change, which is why you're doing your own thing. But are you seeing, is there generally an appetite out there to provide better products? Clearly, you're getting your own products. And I guess secondarily to all of the initiatives that you're doing, are you getting, like, what's it like in the bike industry at large? Are other retailers kind of looking at you going, hey, actually, maybe we should go and have a ride with Andrew and see if we could get some of this info? Or are you kind of still like a bit of an anomaly in the industry and people not interested?
Yeah, I'll address that one first. I think I don't think we're an anomaly. There's probably not too many brands or businesses that are on the train. I'd say Trek, as an example, is a global brand. It's not a brand that we stock across our stores. However, as a brand, they're doing some good things in this space. And it's been, one thing that's been cool to see is, despite not being like a customer or a supplier, we've partnered with them to say, hey, this is what we're doing around tire and tube recycling across our stores. How can you piggyback off that, and vice versa? So there's a bit more collaboration going on with like-minded businesses.
Nice.
And that's sort of one example. And I think from a product perspective, there's a long way to go in terms of, we started, and again, this is kudos through the B Corp process, started with a supplier code of conduct around our expectations, self-assessment, come back each year, and just to get the awareness around, okay, what are our expectations? Because some of these businesses won't change immediately. However, flagging it as part of a continuous improvement. And it is our expectation that there is less non-recyclable packaging in the bike boxes and in our parts and accessories over a few year period, and planting that seed and having some accountability to that has been important.
Nice. Yeah, it was. It definitely came through in the fashion panel yesterday with Shasta and Susan from Eileen Fisher and David from Eralda, that increasingly in the fashion sector, there definitely seems to be that appetite for cooperation. And that's been a theme that's come through all of the sessions. Really, is as I've said it many times. So anyone who's listened to the whole thing, apologies for repeating myself. If you're competing against your competitors, you're not on purpose, because you should be competing against the bigger challenge. So the more bike retailers can come together and go, look, if we all go to the supply chain and say we no longer will accept product that's shipped with this packaging material, they will have to come up with a solution. Whereas if it's just, if it's one lone voice going, hey, could you not? It's like, yeah, but the 99% other people over here don't care. So sorry, mate, you can just, do one. So I think, that sense of awareness and consciousness in general in industry sectors seems to be getting there. Again, like Sawmill Brewery over here, Mike, he's just said that they're practically zero waste brewery. Like, the amount of waste that they produce is so small because they repurpose it or they sell it or whatever. Not one other brewery in New Zealand has taken his playbook, and he's like, I've got the playbook. I'm happy to give it to anyone that wants it. And people are just kind of like, yeah. And so, it's just kind of, I think that's how we're going to get big changes, by people going, and hopefully this is what, one of the benefits of you being a B Corp is, you being an early adopter is you can, like I say, you can be the Kathmandu in your, to the next group of people, where they look at you and go, well, if they can do it, and I think that's really part of the B Corp movement is every time there's a new B Corp in a different sector, it's like, they can do it. There's farms, there's bike shops, there's lawyers, there's recruitment companies, there's product companies. It's like, if you've got the mindset and the intent that you want to be good and do better, you can probably do it. And I think that's just inspiring.
Yeah, and I think the B Corps are at a big advantage. I'm not exactly sure what the future regulations are in NZ. There's definitely a phased in approach around climate reporting and different disclosures that's either here or coming, depending on business sizes over the next couple of years. And I just feel there's going to be companies that'll be scrambling and doing that for the wrong reasons, i.e. just compliance and just to sign off their accounts. However, like companies that are really wanting to make a difference and can get in early and it's embedded in their DNA, not only will be making more of a difference, but they won't be spending the money trying to get a whole lot of consultants in 12, 18 months to figure out what they need to do. So,
So we'll be applying our emergency rate for this consulting, Mr. Garnsworthy. Yeah. 100%. And there's, like I say, there is just a real sense, like just going into your shops, there's a vibe, there's an energy. And I think increasingly people sense that and connect to it. Whereas I think people can tell the box tickers. It's like, if I scratch the surface of your organization, this is a veneer versus actually, no, this is marble. And all the way through is the beautiful marble and it looks amazing, as opposed to there's a marble finish, but it's MDF in the middle. And it's, it just, you pour water on it and it just, turns to flimsy. So, I think increasingly the regulations will push people, but the ones who've genuinely done it for the right reasons will stand out. And I think you'll still, and from what we've seen, I mean, it'd be interesting to know, whether you agree. But everyone we've spoken to, or I've spoken to the last couple of days, like the benefits of B Corp are just like, yes, it was a positive for the business, for employees, customers, revenue. It's like we've not seen a downside to what B Corp has done for the business. So are there any specific benefits that you've seen from having gone through the B Corp process, from a CEO? Because part of this is like, if there's a CEO of a company who's like, oh, I kind of know Andrew, and I know Pedal Group, and he's saying this thing's legit, that's part of the way we expand this movement. So what would be the benefits that you've seen from B Corp?
I think for us, it's been the framework and the accountability has been great, because given we didn't know necessarily where we stood, we thought, okay, people are also a major philosophy across our business. And when we're going through and doing I think it's called the workers module part of the BIA, and there's 5 or 6 areas that we score lowly on, or we don't score points. It's a really good question to go, okay, this is a global accreditation around how the best companies in the world. So are we missing a trick? So it's sort of helped us improve our offerings, improve our policies and programs that are there. And we haven't followed everything as part of the recommendation. It's more about what makes sense for our business. But it's probably been an eye-opener from that perspective, in terms of learning where we can genuinely be better. And then it's probably also, I think the ongoing and looking forward to some of the new the new standards that are more holistic, being able to having to accredit in, I think it's eight future areers, which I think will make it a lot harder. But we're super excited about that because similarly we want to be held accountable, and we can hold ourselves internally accountable. However, the discipline of knowing, okay, in 2 years we'll be reaccrediting, and this is what we need to do to up the ante in areas that make sense is quite strong, because we're not doing this for a couple of year accreditation. This needs to be for the long term betterment of the company and betterment of all stakeholders.
Nice. Totally agree. Yeah, I mean, ultimately doing B Corp should be because it's the right thing to do. It's like you say, you want to create a better business. So kudos to you and the team. So looking to the future, I guess, were there any parts of the assessment, or in terms of like improvement plans? You sort of mentioned a couple of things, but yeah, anything else that you're looking at to do to implement it to be better?
Yeah, I think I mentioned with the employee survey as one part. In terms of, there's a lot that we need to do and improve on in the climate related areas, and we haven't landed on what those actions will be. We have a program called Earning to Give in our business, where 1% of wages is donated to the charities of our employees' choice, which has been set up over the last 10 years or so. And we've donated about $2 million to different charities that are selected by each individual. So it's quite an empowering program. And I guess my mind goes to, how can we, like, internally, like, let's say, tax ourselves around our profits, and actually divert that to different purpose related initiatives, and probably some climate related initiatives with ownership across each of the different areas, different countries. So there's a bit of work to do to figure out where that will land. But yeah, we're going through a process with a working group at the moment to come up with some ideas and suggestions. So there's a lot of buy-in once we do get to a direction. But yeah, that's an area that we need a lot of work around, and there will be some changes made. Yeah,
it's really coming through that it's about the team and having everyone on board, and I think that's when I work with companies to help them go through B Corp, I'm very dogmatic about, you will bring the team on the journey, because if you don't, it's just a missed opportunity. And I'm working with a few clients currently on their recertification, and first time round, it was one person sat in a room who did the B Corp, and that person's now left the company, and all the IP around B Corp has disappeared. And in many cases, the new person who's running the B Corp is new to the company and doesn't even know what B Corp is or was before they were told, hey, you're running the recert. And it's just such a wasted opportunity, because like I say, in terms of like that purpose connection, you've all of your team members, and this is something that I was sort of saying yesterday in the B Corp session that I ran, and the purpose session today, like every human is walking around the planet thinking about at least one social and one environmental issue that's really important to them. And if they can bring that concern to work and go, hey, Andrew, I'm passionate about this, and I think our business can fix that, or at least make that a bit less shit. And you go, yes, that's a great idea. Come back to me with a business plan and show me how we can do that. Like, it's employee engagement heaven. It's like, but so many companies, I think, still, like you say, there's possibly a lot of companies who still just see doing good as this kind of compliance. Okay, yeah, what do we need to do to just meet minimum requirements to stay in the game? But it's such a missed opportunity, which is why I call it that purpose-fueled performance. If you get the team committed and understanding the good that the organization does, and they're coming to you with ideas, for you as a CEO, it's got to make life a bit easier, because, well, maybe it's harder because you've got all these ideas coming through and you're like, hang on, we've got to prioritize and work out which one we do. But it's better than sitting there, you having to try and come up with all the ideas, surely.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And yeah, I was quite inspired. It was actually, we put a B Corp survey out recently just around how we're going, and open ratings and areas for improvement. And one of the specific comments came through from our Hornby store saying there was a suggestion that was put forward around planting a tree for every bike that we sold that didn't get across the line, and felt that was a missed opportunity. So we're definitely not perfect, and that was just an eye opener to me around, that sounds like a brilliant idea. Like, why are we not encouraging something along those lines? So there's work to do, but yeah, partly keeping those open communication lines is helpful in this.
Yeah, massively. And I think that's always the thing. It's like, it's great that the team come up with loads of ideas, but you obviously you can't implement every idea, and so it has to be aligned with overall strategy, priorities, and what you are able to do. Because if all of a sudden you're giving away all your money, you've got no money to pay the team, and you can't bring your next container of bikes in, and there you don't have any shops, and all of a sudden, and so yeah, it's how has that been for you, I guess, as a CEO who's kind of like transitioned from as you've said, a very numbers driven kind of CEO? It's about the bottom line. So have you had to change your mindset about how you make decisions around, okay, actually this like there's a I listened to a podcast, there's a guy, Rory Sutherland, he's quite an interesting character. He's chairman or vice chair of Ogilvy and Mather, the big advertising agency. And as he talks about, you know, I think there's a washing machine company, it might be Ariston, and they gave a cuddly toy away with each washing machine that they sold. And, you know, as he said, you know, your typical corporate consulting firm would come in and say, you're spending $10 million a year giving away a cuddly toy. And he's like, yes, but what value are we getting in terms of goodwill from all the parents who give that to their kid? And that kid then grows up with an Ariston bear. You know, I might have got the wrong brand, but, you know, it's like, that's incalculable. Like you can't tell me what the actual value of that is, but, you know, you can tell me what the bottom line is on the number of teddy bears. Is that like a mindset shift that you've had to get around? It's like, well, okay, planting a tree, yeah, it's a nice idea, but it's going to cost us X. But, you know, you're now obviously factoring in, yeah, but the team engagement and the, you know, actually the environmental benefit. So yeah, what's that journey been like for you?
Yeah, well, we definitely can't do everything, I think is very accurate in terms of, I guess, seeing the one of our other philosophies is purpose drives profit, and ultimately both are important. And we had a lot of debate around this because, yeah, previously in our previous major shareholder, Flight Centre, their philosophies were simple. It was people plus customers equals profit, and sort of the top three philosophies. And we were sort of challenged by that to say, okay, does that resonate? Is that why we were set up as part of being a company for the long term? And yeah, there's definitely people on the spectrum of, okay, it should be mainly about profits for shareholders. However, the cultural side, purpose was more embedded, and so ultimately, if we need to have a sacrifice of one or the other, it will be profit. And a lot of the things that we've done, and the recycling might be a good example, it actually hasn't cost us any more. It's just doing the right thing. It's trying to have a focus and a lens on it. It hasn't been more expensive, so to speak. However, the engagement across our teams has been staggering. So yeah, I think it's a juggling act of short term and long term, and profit and complete purpose. But ultimately, we want to get more customers riding bikes and do the right thing for the long term. And then if we do that, yeah, we feel that there'll be sufficient returns coming to shareholders, etc.
Yeah, and I think that's the other big part of it is, you know, if you were just purely capitalistic in your nature, being a B Corp actually stacks up, because the evidence and the data is there that B Corps outperform in terms of revenue, resilience. So it's like, actually, if you, and in fact, I've had a conversation with a CEO, I won't name, Trans Tasman company. I sat down to present to their board on, like, you know, why they should consider B Corp. And his opening gambit was, Tim, look, I'm a white old dude. I'm very wealthy. I like playing golf with other white rich dudes. I don't believe in any of this shit, but I recognize I have to for my business to be relevant. What have you got? And I'm kind of like, I'm open with your transparency here that you don't believe in it, but you kind of need to, because once you start doing good, it's contagious. And I think this is part of the thing. It's like, once you connect to that, and again, this is where it's really hard to sell energy and vibe, because it sounds really woo-woo, but once you connect to the wow, that felt good, and actually I didn't really care about the money, you start caring less about the money and looking for more opportunities to do more good. And so you kind of end up with this ideal balance point of, yeah, we're doing okay financially, but we're not profiteering. And I think that's when I think when a lot of people go, oh, burn, you know, capitalism, burn it down. It's like, well, if someone's profiteering, that's a different story. But if someone's making good money, but you're really looking after your staff, you're looking after some local communities, you're trying to improve the planet, and you're providing mental health benefits, I think there's a big piece of work that you need to look at in terms of like outcomes measurement, like trying to work out how much good you actually do. Because I think the good that your stores are actually creating is probably so deep and wide that, you know, I'm going to mention Tim Loftus again from Kathmandu. He has a really cool keynote where he talks about, you know, the ripple effect. You know, your ripple of you selling a bike to someone, like that's one thing, but that person then having better mental health, which means they're a better parent, which means they're more active on the weekends, which means they're more active in their community, which then maybe inspires 5 other people. You know, how you can't capture that, but you're doing it, and it's never going to be captured on a balance sheet, but you just know that feels good. So yeah, I think as people progress on the purpose journey, they actually care less about the financial side anyway. So it's, yeah. And I think you are clearly, as an organization and as a leader, going to inspire a lot of other businesses to go down this path. So nice work.
Yeah, I would say there's some tough questions that get asked, particularly with businesses that are either starting up or in new markets, might be losing some money before they get up and running. And there's quite often a little bit of reluctance to go, okay, well, why should we just roll out this initiative, which is going to cost 20, 50K a year? And so it's not a no-brainer that everyone's completely on board. It does need some really good conversations around how this works over the, you know, the short, medium, and long term. Particularly around the people engagement side.
Nice. Well, as one of my other long used phrases is, if doing good was easy, they'd all be doing it. And not everyone's doing it. You know, we're still, I've said it multiple times the last couple of days, we're about 10,000-ish B Corps globally, just below. It's about 0.01% of the global business community as a B Corp. So it's not easy, which is why, but I think, you know, we'll all look back, hopefully in 30 years time, going, God, do you remember those like late 2000s or that 2020s when we were still arguing whether purpose was any good? Oh, what crazy days they were, you know. That's my hope, is that, you know, and again, I think we don't, you know, generally the impact that you're having across 3 countries, I don't think you'll truly be able to capture the influence that you will have had on helping people become more aware that you can do good and do okay financially. So so final, sorry, you go.
Yeah, love that ripple effect concept. Definitely look that up. Thanks, Tim.
It's all yours. So final question. So you were inspired by Kathmandu. If there was one brand or organization that you could inspire to them go on the journey to B Corp or to do more good, who would that brand be?
Oh, one brand. I think it's a tough one. I think for us, we've got a few major brands that we work through the supply chain. Merida and Cube being two global businesses, and also our own pedal bikes. And I guess there's a lot of work to be done through the complete supply chain. We're talking factories across Asia, talking manufacturing. So in terms of like really making a difference throughout, and you could extend that around e-bikes and where parts come from across the world. So I think if we can truly get some strong visibility around our supply chain and make some tough decisions around, you know, where we're not comfortable that there may be issues around, around, you know, I mean, lithium from Congo is an example of horrendous working conditions, and it is a difficult one to fully track through and understand exactly what's happening through the full supply chain. But yeah, I just love that it become a day where there became a lot more clarity that the companies can like literally move away from anything that's doing wrong to people, to kids, to the environment around the world, through decisions that we can control around our sourcing. I think it's a gap at the moment, and hopefully over time that becomes clearer. I think that'd be probably, in terms of relating for our business, around the front end of the supply chain, which
Yeah.
we'll need to get to, but it's a difficult one to fully flow through from a global perspective. With it might be 150 different parts that make up a particular bike. How we get full visibility, I think, is an important one.
Yeah. Well, look, I have full confidence. Like I say, I think there's a lot of people leading businesses like yours where I'm going to guess very rarely do you get an email that comes through to you saying, hey, I love what you guys are doing, it's brilliant. You normally get the, hey, I ordered this thing and it didn't turn up, and it wasn't, most people are very quick to say, hey, it didn't happen, rather than, hey, I love what you're doing. But I just think, I think you have no idea how much of a ripple you will be creating, and you're doing so much good. It's like almost impossible to unpack. And I just think you've got the mindset and the intent, which is what I said it's always about. If you've got the mindset, the intent that you want to be better, you will find a ways, and you'll keep having those ripple effects, and change will happen. Typically, I mean, CEOs, you're typically driven individuals. It's probably not happening as quick as you want it to, but you've got to take people on the journey. So keep doing that, and just get them on an e-bike, or a really fast road bike instead of a cargo bike. Maybe that's what that's the analogy. But Andrew, thank you so much for being a willing guest and participant and hanging out on the Be Better Virtual Summit. It's been really great to connect this last week. And I think it's a really nice sunny afternoon here in Christchurch. I think I might actually go out for a bike ride to decompress after 2 days of being stuck in a screen. Not sure it's been good for my mental health. Possibly not for the people listening either. But Andrew, thank you so much. Keep up the amazing work. And shout out to James in the Hornby team, who is my wife's cousin's husband. There we go. Welcome to New Zealand. 2 degrees of separation. That's how we roll. But Andrew, just honestly, keep on doing the great work you're doing, man.
Fantastic, Tim. Thanks very much for having me.
So well, that is it. The Be Better Virtual Summit 2025. We are done and dusted. So thanks everyone to tuning in. If you have not been inspired to do some more good after listening to all the amazing guests we've had over the last, if you've been listening to me, I take your point. But the guests we've been having, if you've not been inspired by what Andrew and the team at Pedal Group and 99 Bikes are doing, then I don't know, you need your head looking at. We've got a comment. Where's the comment come from? Natural Goodbye, New Zealand. Awesome effort, team. Thank you so much. The team behind this was not that big. It was mainly me and Bella, my assistant. So we've done this on a proper shoestring. What else have we got? We had a couple of comments came in at the end of the paddle session. Pancham came back with genuine commitment. Here. I agree. Sophie Ross from good old Tasmania, Indicium. Love this advice. Thanks all to the panelists. So thank you for that. And another comment from Pancham. Thanks, Tim, and all of you. So thank you for listening in all the way from India. And Michelle, she dropped in with a love this, great insights. I'm feeling inspired. So at least one person is feeling inspired about doing some goodness in the B Corp world. So we'll take that as a win. So that's pretty much it. I'm quite tired after doing 2 days of live streaming, but it's been fun at the same time. So if you are inspired and you want to get on your B Corp journey, I might know a guy who can help you. If you want some more information on B Corp, just connect with me on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you've been tuning in. You can go to that link. You can get yourself a copy of my ebook, To Be or Not to Be, the What, Why and How of B Corp, which is basically a written version of the workshop I did yesterday. If you are ready to go and you want to be a B Corp and you've kind of started the journey maybe and you've stalled and stumbled, again, I might know a guy who can help you. You can check out my website, growgood.co/B Corp consulting. It's kind of what I do allegedly on the day-to-day. But other than that, that is it. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I guess we'll see you this time next year for the 2026 version. Whew, crazy time. So look at that Google barking in the background to send me off. Awesome. Thank you so much. We will catch you all soon.